Please be seated. Thank you. Everybody seated? Good evening and welcome to this meeting of Medway's Full Council, which is being live streamed via the Council's website. The Mayor's Chaplain, Major Ian Payne, will now say prayers.
Madam Mayor, councillors, officers, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We're in a season of remembering as we come to this council meeting. Last weekend, you will have remember, the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason and plot. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Did you know there's 2 other verses? Never heard them. Guy Fawkes, 'twas his intent to blow up the king and parliament, 70 barrels of powder below, poor old England to overthrow. By God's providence he was catched, with dark lantern and burning match. Holla boys, let the bells ring. Holla boys, God save the king. I tried not to say that if they did it today, they'd get a knighthood. Not a sonnet or a poem, but we come thinking of remembering. And tomorrow, Madam Mayor, myself and others of the community will stand at 11 o'clock, 11 a.m., remembering, as many of you, well, all of you, as elected members will be standing, I'm sure, on Sunday and remembering, using another sonnet, a verse of one of 7 from the poem by Robin Binion. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn at the going down of the sun. And in the morning we will remember them. And indeed we will. It's been about a decade since every council in the land signed its military covenant, if you remember. This council, I'm sure, I meant to look it up, but would have signed that covenant in supporting the veterans of the wars and conflicts across the world. And we still remember not just the conflicts, but we remember those who paid the ultimate sacrifice and have come home as well and need support. We remember sacrifice and courage. We also remember people who have had a great influence on our lives. And as I say that, I'm sure there's a face pops up in your mind, or a name, your first school teacher, possibly. And we are here, some of us, because of those influences, and we remember those influences in our lives. This week I've said quite a few times, I'm of that age. Do you remember when? I never hear my grandchildren say, do you remember when? Or my children, but when you get to a certain age, you can say, do you remember when? That first time you did something, that day you stood and you were announced as the councillor for your particular ward, the first time. It's a great memory. So what will people think about me? What will people remember about me, Ian F. Payne? What will they remember me for? Will they remember me for kindness, integrity, honesty, short prayers at full councils? That I doubt. Whatever our roles, we want to be remembered for making a difference in people's lives. I hope that is said of you and said of me. So in these days as we remember well and we stand well. A prayer together. Father God, we thank you for this day, for this time of remembrance, particularly those who have given their lives in conflicts throughout the world. Those families today that suffer because of the loss of a loved one. In your love and mercy, Lord, we ask for peace and healing of broken hearts. For our own community and borough, let us all lead with kindness, integrity and care. Bless those in the caring professions around the borough who daily go above and beyond to meet the needs of others. Lord, bless this council, all councillors, officers and employees and their families. Bless our first citizen, Mayor Aldous, and her consort Tony. Continue to give them health, strength and wisdom in their roles as ambassadors in these days. We ask for your peace and blessing over us, everyone here tonight, Lord. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Councillor Kemp, are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have apologies from Councillor Griffin and Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much. Councillor Price, have you any apologies for absence?
I have apologies from Councillor Simon Curry, Councillor Nashaba Khan, Councillor Clive Johnson and Councillor Chrissy Stamp.
Thank you very much. Are there... Sorry, Barry.
Begging your pardon, Madam Mayor, I also have apologies from Councillor Filmer and Councillor Golvin.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests or any other significant interests from members of the Council? Please clearly describe the nature of the interest if you declare one. Thank you. We've got, yeah. Lovely. Yeah, and...
Thank you.
Yeah, as well. I think Councillor Chijan was first, but he's gone off, and Councillor Crofts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I noticed in one of the sets of the cabinet meeting of the cabinet that the Sunlight Development Trust was mentioned in relation to a forthcoming lease. So if anything's raised in relation to that, I shall absent myself from the meeting because I'm a chair of the trustees there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Halcroft-Scott.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Yes, I noticed that we are discussing the TSAT schools. I'm Vice Chair of Victory Academy. I'm going to step out when that's on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So you might ask Councillor Chijan whether he wants to...
Councillor Chijan, did you want to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kindy Limited is mentioned in Appendix 4, the Cabinet report. I'm a chairman of Kindy. Thank you.
Any other members? Thank you very much. Right, on to item 3, record of meeting. Is it agreed that I sign the minutes of the meetings held on the 21st of July and the 8th of September 2022, which was adjourned to the 15th of September 2022, as well as the minutes of the special meeting on the 21st of July, circulated in the supplementary agenda as accurate records? Thank you. We now move on to Mayor's announcements. Members will be sadly aware of the recent passing of Councillor Mick Pendergast. Councillor Pendergast served as a Medway councillor for the Peninsula Ward since 2015. He had been a member of the Planning Committee and the Licences and Safety Committee for his first 4 years on the council and was more recently a member of the Rural Liaison Committee. I'm sure all members will join me in extending our condolences to Councillor Pendergast's family. I attended Mick's funeral last week, which was very well attended by his family and friends, as well as members and officers. I will shortly propose that we hold a minute's silence, but first I would like to ask group leaders and Councillor Sands to speak in tribute. Councillor Jarrett.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's always a real tragedy when we lose a member at all, but particularly one like Mick, who was of no great age, was he? I wasn't very close to him. I didn't know him well enough to know that he was ill, and therefore it was a real shock to me, and I guess it was a shock to plenty of other people as well. I thought he was a good member. He represented his residents to the best of his ability. He was an affable, decent chap, I thought, and I think his electorate will be the poorer for his passing. I'd like to add my tributes to yours, Madam Mayor, to his family and friends. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Councillor Maypole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Aldous. And as the Leader of the Council says, it's very sad that we're now in this situation for the fourth time in just over a year. Like you, I was very privileged to be at Mick's funeral, and I think anyone who survived falling down a lift shaft and used to drink in the South London Bag of Nails was probably hardy enough to come and be a councillor here on Medway Council. Obviously, like so many people, Mick stood up for what he believed in, obviously joined the council as a UKIP councillor, and then saw the light of day. And I know in particular, sadly Clive can't be here tonight, but Clive Johnson worked closely with Mick when it came to the issue of the proposed school merger in his community, making sure the voices of both the youngest people, but actually people of all of those two villages were heard. He enjoyed being a councillor, that was clear from the conversations I had with him. So my thoughts and the thoughts of the whole Labour team are with Julie, Lindsay, Dexter, and of course his residents and his close political colleague Chris as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sands.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I missed the funeral of Mick. I was unwell at the time, and so I'm very pleased to be able to talk at this moment. I think Mick was, he was just Mick. What you saw is what you got, basically. He was plain speaking. He was an honest man. He was the life and soul of Stoke. He and Julie had made the Nag's Head into almost a community hub, where most of the community events happened around the Nag's Head. And it would be sorely missed by all those in Stoke. He'll be sorely missed by the people of the peninsula, because he was a strong voice for us on the peninsula, and we will miss that greatly. I think here, amongst us, we'll miss a very good councillor, a councillor that was always available to his constituents, and by virtue of running a pub, that sometimes went on till 10:30 in the evening. So I think we've lost a great asset. Personally, Mick sat alongside me. He helped me in the early stages, showed me the pitfalls, and we had a running joke that we were two of the largest councillors with the smallest desks, and they still are the smallest desks. I'm going to miss him, and I think we all miss him, but none of us will miss him as much as Julie and the family. And my heartfelt condolences go out to them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sands. We will now hold a minute's silence. Thank you very much. Tomorrow is Remembrance Day, and I would advise members that I will be attending a ceremony at Victory Gardens, as well as services on the Great Lines, Rochester Cathedral on Remembrance Sunday. Please can I remind members to speak very closely into their microphones so that the people in the public gallery and those watching on live stream can properly hear what they're saying. And please try not to interrupt other members unless you've got a genuine point of order. Thank you. And finally, can I remind members to ensure that written copies of any amendments are brought up to the top table first? Thank you. Item 5, Leaders' Announcements. May I call on the Leader of the Council to make any announcements?
No announcements tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any petitions?
Lead petitioner Luella Prenter. We, the undersigned, are concerned by dangerous driving and speeding along Gillingham Road towards the level crossing and consider there to be a risk to pedestrians. We call on Medway Council to consider road safety measures along this section of the road. Thanks.
Are there any other members of the public?
Members of the public first. Okay.
No. Thank you. Are there any members? Councillor Brake?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been asked to present a petition this evening on behalf of residents living in and around Waterslade Village, and it concerns a planning application for the proposal to build flats, and it is considered to be an overdevelopment for the area. Details of the lead petitioner are attached. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brake. Councillor Purdy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to call upon Medway Council to install safety measures to the Watling Street to slow traffic down. This is an extremely busy road, and at the moment, unfortunately, we've had a tragedy up there. I don't want another one, because that is 2 lives that are spoiled. The person that is involved in running the lady over and the lady that died, they have to live with that gentleman has to live with that for the rest of his life. Now, whether having slowing down measures there that on that day might have helped or not, I don't know. But I would like Medway Council to look at this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Edwards?
Thank you. I've got a petition to submit on behalf of the residents who will live near the new St John Fisher School on City Way, and the petition asks the council to develop a parking scheme proposal to mitigate the impact on nearby residents when that school opens, and that process should consider introducing a controlled parking zone to be drawn up in consultation with residents and local councillors, and to allow any supported measures to be in place for spring next year.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members? Lovely. We now move on to public questions. Now, I believe that the first, Carl Dunks is not here, so he will receive a written reply. Ruth Banks, please come up and ask your question. Kevin Fowl. Would you like to come up and ask a question?
My question is, I'm concerned and frustrated about the total lack of any warning about the boundary changes to the ward. I'm not a social media user. We don't buy the local newspapers, and I get no responses from my local councillors. I've tried it. What I'm saying, the law states that the proposed changes should be communicated for feedback. We received no notification at all. Why not a simple mail drop to those affected? Like I say, I'll go on for the question. Lots of my neighbours are completely in the dark about the boundary change as well. So it's just not me. There's quite a few people you just speak.
Right, so we have your question there, and I'd like Councillor Hackwell, if you could supply an answer, please.
Thank you for your question, Mr Fowl. The review of the electoral arrangements in Medway was undertaken by the Local Government Boundary Commission for England and not Medway Council. The process is set out in legislation that allows the Commission to decide how they will consult and inform those who may be interested. They held 3 public consultations, the 17th of December to the 9th of March 2020, December 19 to March 2020, to seek views on the new ward boundaries should be, the 30th of June to the 7th of September 2020 on our draft recommendations, the 1st of December 2020 to the 11th of January 2021 on further recommendations for Rainham and Twiddle. The Commission wrote to over 460 interested parties and stakeholders, as well as the local media and the MPs representing the Medway Council area. They also publicised the review and the various consultation periods on their social media channels and website, and Medway signposted people to the Commission website via its own social media channels. Local views were accepted through the Commission website and by email and post. Everyone who wrote to them as part of the review got notified of the start of the next round of consultation. They received 143 submissions in response to the initial consultation on ward boundaries, 325 submissions in response to the consultation on the draft recommendations, and 133 submissions in response to the limited consultation on further draft recommendations for Rainham and Twiddle. The boundary changes came into effect for the local elections next May, and a short article about the overall impact is included in the editions of Medway Matters, which will start to be distributed to all households from mid-November.
Thank you, Councillor Hathaway. Can I just remind people that are coming up to answer questions to come up to the microphone, and I remind you that that if you can either read your question or have it as read. Thank you. And those that are responding, can you not exceed 3 minutes? Thank you. We move on to Liz O'Hanlon. No, not in. She'll get a written reply. Stephen Taylor.
Thank you. As a local family who has purchased an electric car to help the environment during this climate emergency, could the portfolio holder set out how the council is trying to make it easier for families like ours who want to do the right thing, specifically with regards to charging our vehicles and the options for those who live in houses with no off-street parking?
Thank you. Councillor Doe, would you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, thank you for your question, Mr Taylor. We are preparing an electric vehicle strategy which will identify ways we can facilitate the delivery of infrastructure that supports the transition to electric vehicles, ensuring as best we can that all residents and businesses can access reasonably priced public charge points. Over the past year, we've installed 34 electric vehicle charging points in some of our town centre car parks, which complement those provided by the commercial sector. We're also looking at the provision of on-street charging, and we are in discussion with a commercial provider about a potential pilot scheme. As part of that strategy, we're exploring the demand for electric vehicle charging points across Medway, and we encourage any resident who owns an electric vehicle or is thinking about buying one to visit our website, where you can suggest a location for an on-street charging point. This will help us to plan charging locations and to demonstrate the local need when applying for funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nina Urang? No, she's not here, so she'll have a written reply. Alan Wells? No, he's not here either. Surinder Shadak? No, she's not here either. Right. Vivian Parker.
At the moment, staff at our healthy living centres have to pay to park in council car parks when they are working. Would it be possible for the council to give them free parking passes or enable them to reclaim their parking costs?
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Hackwell to reply, please?
Thank you, Ms Parker, for your question. We need to charge for using our car parks to ensure we have the funding to keep them operating efficiently and well maintained. I'm afraid this means that we are unable to offer free parking throughout the year. Our parking charges are very reasonable compared with other areas, and long-stay car parks customers can buy season tickets to make parking even cheaper.
Thank you. Alan Stockey.
Thank you. The prior version of the Climate Change Action Plan included in section 11.10 ensure the heatwave plan and cold weather plan are reviewed and updated annually. It is noted that this action has been removed from the latest version of the Climate Action Plan, but it is not clear what's been done to address this given the experiences of 40-degree heat wave in recent months. It is a given that such temperatures will no longer be extremes and that the preserve of emergency plans only and will need particular focus to ensure coordinated approach to publishing places of refuge and clear communications out to the communities. I would like to know, given that the Council has felt it appropriate to remove this reference in the latest action plan, what policies the Council plans to put in place to address more regular extremes of temperature.
Thank you. Councillor Doe, would you please respond?
Yes, of course. Thank you for your question, Mr Stockey. I can confirm that Action 1110, to which you refer, is now an action that's been embedded within the Council's core duties, and as such has been removed from the 2022 Climate Change Action Plan. What that means is that in order to stop the plan getting longer and longer and longer, an action plan, what we've done is to regard certain of these core duties, as explained in the plan, as part of everyday work, and therefore work on both these plans will continue in that vein. So there's no let-up in that, but we can't obviously set out every single thing in the action plan, otherwise it would just go on and on. So those ongoing activities of that sort are still there.
Thank you very much. Brian Fowler.
How much budget will Medway Council be setting aside annually for maintaining the water feature in the paddock Chatham for the 5 financial years commencing 2024? This includes maintenance cleaning, water and electricity charges.
Thank you. Councillor Rodney Chambers, will you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In response to your question, Mr Fowler, I can confirm that there is a budget allocation to cover water, electricity, cleaning and maintenance for the water feature. However, the maintenance contract has not yet been awarded, and as such, I cannot share the budget allocation at this time. The maintenance schedule for the water feature will be stringent and will comply with the appropriate regulations.
Thank you very much. Chris Spalding, may I have your question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tomorrow is the 11th day of the 11th month. It is Remembrance Day. At the council meeting in January 2019, my very good friend, the late Councillor Mick Pendergast, put forward a motion that some tickets to Medway Council events be donated to the charity Tickets for Troops. The motion received cross-party support and was carried unanimously. At the council meeting on the 18th of July 2019, I inquired how many tickets had been donated thus far. Councillor Rupert Turpin, responding on behalf of Councillor Doe, gave, in my opinion, a waffling response in an attempt to deflect away from the answer, which was no tickets had been donated. I appreciate we've had COVID and lockdown, but can Councillor Doe now kindly tell me how many tickets have been donated between January 2019 and the 31st of October 2022?
Councillor Doe, will you please respond?
Yes, thank you for your question, Mr Spalding. 40 tickets were offered to Tickets for Troops for the Rochester Castle concerts in 2018-2019, but unfortunately the charity did not take any of the tickets made available on either occasion. Rochester Castle concerts are now delivered by a commercial organisation, and we will ask that a similar offer is made to Tickets for Troops for future years. Through our theatres, we offer a minimum 20 tickets to Little Troopers, a charity supporting children and military personnel with at least one parent serving overseas, to a performance of our annual pantomime. And this offer has had a full uptake every year since its implementation in 2015. We also offer tickets to the annual pantomime to the following charities: Holding On, Letting Go, Wish Upon a Star, Gingerbread, and various local hospice and respite centres. And as far as I'm concerned, as being having the responsibility for the Armed Forces Covenant, if there is further demand, we will certainly look at it and try to accommodate it. But we do have, obviously, a budget which we need to keep to. So I think that there is scope for increasing that, should the forces wish us to do so.
Thank you. Nigel Jackson, may I have your question, please?
Can the portfolio holder update Council on the progress made regarding the April 2019 motion on Uber operating in Medway?
Thank you. Councillor Chitty, would you please respond?
Thank you. I'm very grateful for this question, because it is something cross-party that we've put a lot of energy and effort in. Can I assure you that that effort will continue, and whatever the difficulties that arise, we will address them accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll move on to item 8, the Leader's Report. We have 35 minutes to receive and debate the Leader's Report. May I call on the Leader to present his report?
Yes, indeed, Madam Mayor, and thank you. In Medway, throughout difficult times, we've been committed to ensuring we provide stability and conduct business as usual. Firstly, in September, Madam Mayor, we had our 5th monitoring visit from Ofsted, which had a focus on disabled children in our 0 to 25 service. The report found that the service had been making significant improvements. Our final monitoring visit will take place early in 2023 with a focus on the front door and our work with vulnerable adolescents. In terms of leadership of the service, inspectors found the following: that senior leaders continue to focus purposefully on their improvement journey, that accurate self-assessment, which demonstrates how senior leaders know their strengths and what they need to do to address deficiencies, robust audit and moderation processes. Plans are in place to address the lack of community resources for disabled children, and social workers are positive about working in Medway. And I've lost my place. Apologies, Madam Mayor. That's what you get for not having numbered pages, isn't it? It also noted that in relation to practice, there were the following improvements. Social workers complete timely assessments, and children are seen promptly as part of this process. Some children, particularly those who had the same social worker for a long time, have developed strong and positive relationships with their social workers. Most disabled children in care live in stable and settled placements with carers who meet their needs well. A sustained focus on improving quality of practice in the current area of scrutiny and support is in supervision and management oversight, which is critical in progressing plans and in supporting consistency of practice. We've also been lucky enough to receive DFE support, and this has funded some important work, including increases in our QA capacity, a multidisciplinary team in place to work with families who experience chronic neglect, domestic abuse and substance misuse, and increased focus on the retention of staff. Still lost my place, bloody hell. positive work with our partners to improve a joined-up response to families experiencing domestic abuse and neglect, targeted recruitment and retention work, and 10 new qualified workers who have been appointed from September. Madam Mayor, we've made massive strides in this area, and we anticipate a full re-inspection under the ILACS framework will take place in the spring or early summer of next year. Work is underway to prepare for this, and the leadership team is undertaking a full diagnostic against the Ofsted criteria to support this work. We hope our efforts and consistently positive feedback throughout this process will be noted and will take strongly into consideration when the full re-inspection is undertaken. Moving on to our regeneration programme, which continues to move at pace. We have had many successes which help to drive opportunities for local growth and local job creation. We have the IPM project, Rochester Riverside, the Future High Streets projects, and HIF, to name a few, all of which are now well underway. And in terms of the IPM, I will get organised, Madam Mayor. In terms of the IPM, the southern site infrastructure works are now complete, and the contractors have left site, and all external funding requirements have been met, and a demand study is completed, confirming that the proposed strategy is being implemented. A levelling up funding bid was submitted in July, and will support delivery of one of the buildings on the southern site. Furthermore, with an anchor tenant, heads of terms are agreed, and solicitors are working through the agreement and the legal documentation. A construction tender is being prepared with a view to getting contractors' input through the design process, expecting to start on site in February 2023. In terms of the much larger northern site, FM Conway are progressing well with the infrastructure works at the site and are currently on programme. All underground utilities have been installed and above ground works are progressing well. Road layouts and curb edgings have been installed, paving is currently being laid, and Reba Stage 3 is now commenced for the design of the multi-storey car park on plot NI3. But however, this car park will not be brought forward until buildings are delivered on site and there is a demand for it. It's also important to note that discussions are taking place with potential occupants for the northern site, and terms are being agreed for the sale of individual plots. We've now spent and met criteria for all external funding, and a bid has been submitted for an additional £400,000 getting building funding to be a contribution towards Runway Park, and we will hear about that hopefully by the end of November. The expected completion date for the work on the site is March 2023. In terms of marketing the site, Everson Young are working alongside Harrison's to increase the awareness of IPM on a national level, and part of this is the IPM is now being promoted on social media. The council IPM web page has been updated, and officers are working with our comms and our marketing consultants to update the IPM website to ensure it is more commercially led to entice national businesses. Officers have been working with comms to secure a date for a media event which will celebrate the completion of the IPM infrastructure works. In terms of Rochester Riverside, that's progressing well, and 331 units are now occupied in phases 1 and 2, and all commercial units are occupied, and the affordable units have been handed over. The school will be completed in the summer of next year, and a formal funding agreement provided by DFE is almost complete, with Countryside having now procured all subcontractors to recommence work in November. Madam Mayor, in terms of our integrated care system in Kent and Medway, which you recall I discussed at our council meeting in July, has been making progress, especially in terms of the Better Care Fund, which was established in 2015 to facilitate integration between health and social care organisations in order to deliver person-centred and coordinated services. We have established a steering group to support regular and ongoing engagement with key stakeholders and internal and external partners around the Better Care Fund planning and commissioning activity for the Better Care Fund. Finally, Madam Mayor, I recently attended the Integrated Care System Symposium, Together We Can, which brought together over 100 representatives from a number of organisations, including Medway and Kent County Council. And I'm pleased to say that Medway continues to play a pivotal role in that work. And further, Madam Mayor, Greater North Kent, of which Medway is a founding member, will be bringing forward an important report on the state of GP provision across North Kent. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jarrett. We now move to the debate. Would Councillor Maple like to start off, please?
Thank you very much, Mayor Aldous. I'm very proud to be wearing my poppy the night before Remembrance Day. I look forward to welcoming you to Chatham Central tomorrow morning. And it's important that we reflect and remember, as the chaplain rightfully said earlier on. It was also pleasing to see you and others in the room last night at the Medway Youth Awards. It was great to have that back in person. It was fantastic to see that the future of Medway is in very safe hands in the future. Not so sure about now, but certainly in the future. Mayor Aldous, I welcome the latest letter from Ofsted. We're moving in the right direction. We on this side of the chamber, colleagues will be aware, we have supported this process. We want our young people to get the service they need. And I pay tribute to the hard-working officers and indeed the children themselves, who I'm probably sure are fed up with speaking to Ofsted inspectors, but it's important always we hear the voice of young people. But there is more to do, and there are some specific challenges. I think the issue of recruitment continues to be a challenge. We don't have enough permanent people in place, and that's a problem when you're being looked on nationally, but it's also a problem generally. If we didn't have Ofsted here, but we had those temporary staff, that wouldn't be the best service and not the service our young people deserve. And we need our partners to step up. It's right, ultimately, as we as a council are held to account. We've got the legal responsibility. Members on that side have the absolute legal responsibility. But actually, we can't do this by ourselves. So it is about particularly health partners, education partners, Kent Police and others doing the right thing as well. So we need to see them step up. Mayor Aldous, we agreed various sets of minutes earlier on. I think one of them, the Prime Minister, was Boris Johnson. Two of them, the Prime Minister, was Liz Truss. None of them are the Prime Minister today. And of course, it's residents of Medway who will now end up literally picking up the bill for the failed, some of which the members over here voted for, the failed Trussonomics disaster experiment that we saw, costing residents here in Medway somewhere between £400 and £600 a month on their mortgage repayments. So next, it's no wonder that they were shut out of the last process to select a leader, because look what they did last time they were there voting for their leaders, the woman who was eventually beaten by a lettuce. Mayor Aldous, look, we're just under 180 days from the elections next year. We need to recognise that the public are looking on, and they want to see an administration who don't want to support chaos with people who should know better. They want an alternative. They want to vote for change, and that's what they'll be doing in December, and that's what they'll be doing in May. Thank you, Mayor Aldous.
Thank you, Councillor Maple. Councillor Prenter.
Thank you. On Saturday, we have the two big sporting events concerning rugby. On Saturday afternoon, the men's wheelchair rugby team are playing in the semi-final, which contains two Medway residents. It's no coincidence that we got two members of Medway in that team because of the support that Medway Park has given to wheelchair rugby hosting events, and hopefully that will continue. Again, on Saturday morning, if anyone's up at 6 o'clock in the morning, the women are in the World Cup final. And that team contains Shauna Brown, who has been a firefighter in Medway and actually started her rugby career at Medway Rugby Club, who have a thriving women and girls section. So hopefully, as a council, we can send a message of support to all those Medway residents and previous Medway residents who are representing our country this weekend, and good luck. And hopefully, Shauna can also join Rachel Burford as another Medway resident, a World Cup winner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to the leader for his speech. You mentioned Rochester Riverside and the primary school, and that work is going to start there in November and will be completed by the summer. I've had quite a lot of representation from parents who are currently housed at Pilgrim School, and indeed from Pilgrim School themselves, as I think has Councillor Patterson, because the parents who have sort of been decanted there and their children are being educated there haven't had a formal update about what's happening. So I think it would be very helpful if that could be provided as soon as possible, because as far as they're concerned, they can't see anything going on at the site at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I also would like to pay tribute. I'm wearing my red poppy here with pride. And I've, alongside many of my colleagues here, have been working with the volunteers on the poppy stalls in Chatham and elsewhere. And it's worth remembering we're a proud heritage in Medway with the Royal Navy and Engineers. And we salute their service. Many of us would not be here tonight debating as we do in a free and open society were it not for their sacrifice. Madam Mayor, there's a number of issues, if I may. The leader mentions a number of things in his speech, but conveniently omits others. Perhaps he can give a clarity on the state of the local plan and the state of his conversations with his own backbenchers. The Medway Messenger wrote in 2014 that Medway's housing policy is in absolute disarray. Some 6 years later, how much money, Councillor Jarrett, has been spent on this Medway plan, and how much taxpayers should have any trust in you and fiscal management with this cost over our heads? Secondly, around the local economy, it's pretty well known that Trustonomics has failed. The lettuce won out, and unfortunately for thousands upon thousands of our residents, the Tories have crashed the economy. 10,000 houses now are suffering from increased mortgage payments. Can he clarify, with the changing house prices, why is members of his own cabinet are still sitting on third-party organisations like MDC, which are also submitting planning applications? This has been covered in the media. Does he agree with me and SIPFA and also our own auditors that it's time now members of the cabinet withdrew from third-party organisations like MDC? And I say this because MDC has withdrawn, has changed some of its planning applications and reduced its funding to Section 106. And I would argue there's a conflict of interest in having people sat in this executive of this administration and also working for a third-party organisation which potentially doesn't have the interest of residents. So perhaps he can clarify that this evening. Thirdly, around hardship grants, can he apologise to Medway that we've had to send hundreds of thousands of pounds back to government because he couldn't, because his council couldn't find sufficient support for hardship grants? And can he tell me why the hoops that people have to jump through to get hardship grants, which are ridiculous in my view, can he clarify why these are so extensive? And just lastly, he gave an interview to the press on the 3rd of October about his status as leader and who he's looking forward to retirement. And he said to, and I quote, there are those with leadership ambitions in our group, I'm referring to the Conservatives, a number of them have inflated sense of their own abilities. Can he clarify tonight which member of his group, maybe someone on the back row there, have inflated sense of their own abilities? And does he think that's professional to say about his own members that they have big egos?
Thank you very much,
Thank you very much.
Councillor Osborne. Thank you. Are there any other members that wish to speak? May I return to Councillor Jarrett then, please?
If I could have about an hour to answer Councillor Osborne's diatribe, it would be useful, Madam Mayor. I think in terms of I'll deal with the £350,000 that was sent back. It's quite a simple explanation for that. The second tranche of the Household Support Fund has been spent almost fully, with the exception of 11 pence. The reason the money was sent back is because the government made it quite plain that the money would, if necessary, be rolled over after the 31st of March that year. It then changed its mind and said you can't roll it over. Hence, we were caught out and had to send the money back. That was the reason for that. As I said to you, the second tranche is spent with the exception of 11 pence. Now, Councillor Osborne has said quite a lot about a whole range of things. most of which he knows the answer for, so he's just playing silly devils as he normally does. But what I'm quite interested in is Councillor Maple made virtually no mention of Medway at all, apart from his pipe dream of acceding to the administration. I just want to, and as I've been quoted, I just think I'd like to make one or two, take up one or two quotes myself. Councillor Murray said at the last full council meeting, not the exceptional one, that bullying is unacceptable in any organisation from the top down. And then there was various utterances from Councillor Maple along the same lines, Councillor Osborne along the same lines. And I don't know if these councillors still agree that that is so, because I think we all agree with that, don't we? So perhaps at a moment of their choosing, the Labour group can answer why they're accused of infighting and greed and oustings and stitch-ups and racial slurs and misogyny and misinformation leaks to the media and slander by one of their former members. That would be really interesting and insightful, wouldn't it, Madam Mayor? So instead of wheeling out the usual old tripe that we've heard tonight, maybe they should look at themselves, while they're too busy pointing fingers at other people, look at themselves and think, actually, are we squeaky clean? Or are we just a bunch of hypocrites, Madam Mayor? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, on 2 points of explanation. Firstly, I believe 65,000 young people are an important part of Medway, even if the Leader of the Council doesn't. And secondly, on answering council questions during the Leader's report, I'm happy to start early if he wishes.
Thank you. We now move on to item 9, overview and scrutiny activity. Now we have 25 minutes to receive and debate the report on the overview and scrutiny activity. I will call on Councillor Buckwell to move the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Colleagues, the report in the name of the Chief Executive is from page 87 of the agenda. So this report updates the Council on the activities of Overview and Scrutiny, ONS committees, since our last ordinary full Council meeting back in July, and I'll highlight some key areas of discussion from the agendas over the last 4 months. Such are in addition to the continued regular attendance of Cabinet portfolio holders at ONS meetings, when they provide updates and answer committee questions about respective portfolios, and also is in addition to consideration of quarterly performance monitoring reports by each of the ONS committees. In July, the Children and Young People ONS committee considered annual reports on the Independent Reviewing Officer Service and on fostering, as well as reports titled Attendance and Persistent Absence in Schools. And secondly, outcomes of a consultation on proposals to change 3 grammar schools from single gender to coeducational provision. The committee met again in September. Some of the reports considered included the annual report for Children's Services in relation to complaints and compliments, the Joint Special Educational Needs and Disability, the SEND strategy for 2022 to 25, and an update on workforce recruitment and retention. The Regeneration, Culture and Environment ONS Committee held meetings in both August and October. Reports presented included consideration of 2 petitions referred to the committee regarding potholes and overgrown trees. The committee considered a call-in of a Cabinet decision relating to consultation on the draft WHO development framework. Of course, as members are aware, the committee decision was to refer the matter and the decision to full Council, which then considered the topic at a meeting in September, but decided to take no further action. Other reports considered by the committee included the Shared Prosperity Investment Plan, ahead of its submission to the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities, and the annual review of waste contracts. At its meetings in August and October, the Health and Adult social care, HASC, ONS received an update from Medway NHS Foundation Trust. The committee requested further information on the Trust's finances and the deficit position and asked that in future reports be more data orientated. The committee also considered reports on reforms to adult social care and on the pharmaceutical needs assessment 2022-25, following consideration of an update on the Kent and Medway Adult Learning Disability and Autism Collaborative. The committee asked for a briefing note on education, health and care plan waiting times, and for this also to be shared with the Children and Young People ONS. Other reports considered by the committee included an update on long COVID and the annual complaints and compliments report for adult social care. My committee, the Business Support ONS, also met twice during the period of this report. Again, it was in August and October. And in addition to regular performance monitoring, capital and revenue monitoring updates, the committee considered the Universal Credit and Welfare Reforms Annual Progress Report. The committee also received a report on the revenue and capital budget outturn for 2021-22 and undertook pre-decision scrutiny of the Council Strategy Refresh 2023-24 ahead of consideration by Cabinet and by full Council tonight on our agenda. Finally, Madam Mayor, as always, our ONS committees have effectively scrutinised a range of issues, and I welcome, as my fellow chairs will, comments from other members. That said, I move the report set out in Agenda Item 9, which is at 10.1 on page 99 of our papers. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckwell. Is that supported?
Reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So we now move on to debate. Councillor Maple.
Thank you very much, Mayor Aldous, and thank you, Councillor Buckwell, for your report. I want to go back to business support, and I want to be nice to the Leader of the Council, because actually, I won't make a huge habit of it, but actually, I welcomed his response when my colleague, Councillor Clive Johnson, asked about free school meals. And the Leader of the Council recognised that perhaps the Council got it wrong over the summer period. That's an honest response, and that's to be welcomed. And I know that actually the support that was there over the October break was well received. I've heard that directly from residents. So it's good when the Council recognises it gets something wrong and puts it right. That's a good thing. We should always remember that. What's less helpful is when central government doesn't do the same thing. And we had the DWP there. We were talking about particularly the changes to universal credit, which are affecting Medway, because Medway is a pilot and a pioneer area. And we know from conversations certainly we've had and things in our inbox that £20 being removed that was placed there is actually having a real terms impact on families. And of course, it's worth saying, I know most people in this chamber will know it, a lot of people on universal credit are in work. They are working hard, sometimes working 2 jobs hard, but still, with all of the things we've talked about, because the economy's been crashed, they are finding it more and more difficult to make ends meet. The final thing I want to raise on this issue was actually when we were holding Councillor Hackwell to account. And it was, again, pleasing, and I look forward to, when we do have cross-party consensus, that's a positive thing. I know residents out there would agree with that as well. And this was on the issue of the upcoming elections next May, and the requirement, as we speak at the moment, of the issue of voter ID. And this is not about the principle. Whatever our individual views about that, the principle's been set, the laws have been changed. This is around the practical. And the AEA, which is a professional body for those hard-working women and men who deliver elections for us in Medway and across the country, have been really clear that actually the practical implications of what's being proposed for this coming May, when the legislation still hasn't actually finished yet, is concerning. And I'm genuinely concerned that we've got elections in every part of Kent on May the 4th, obviously Medway most important, second important everywhere else. There'll be challenges. If the government doesn't listen to professionals who are out there, not politicians, although we're going to write on a cross-party basis as agreed at Business Support ONS, the government must listen and just reflect and say, actually, the changes that are being proposed are so huge that actually trying to implement them without the legislation, without the guidance, is going to lead to effectively, potentially, every election across the country having legal challenges. Nobody wants that, Mayor Aldous, and I hope the government listens to representations on a cross-party basis, like here in Medway, and I know are happening elsewhere as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. I wanted to comment on health and adult social care. We've heard a lot about adult social care reform. That's the government's long overdue and poorly handled attempt to achieve integration that has not yet come anywhere. And in the meantime, the sector is in crisis. There are 165,000 vacancies as we speak today. Our services in Medway are being impacted by those vacancies. It's getting increasingly difficult to put new care packages in place after assessments take place. And it's also imperiling the good work that has been done on getting people out of hospital when they're ready to go, because it's getting increasingly difficult to put care packages in place to receive people with more complex needs. I'm looking forward, albeit with trepidation, to the fiscal statement to see if there's actually going to be any real money offered to the sector. At the moment, those 165 vacancies are propelled by the fact that both Aldi and Lidl pay £2 more per hour than the average wage given to care workers who earn normally £9.50, looking after the most vulnerable people in our society. Layer on the upcoming CQC inspection regime that will come to social care, and the need to recruit a whole new workforce to do some of the individual assessments if indeed the social care reforms take place. The council and other councils across the country are going to have yet another mouth open for funding, which at the moment I don't know where that's coming from. So I urge everybody, all members, to put as much pressure on local MPs and on the government. And if nothing is forthcoming in the fiscal statement, it will not be reasonable to continue to ask our workers in adult social care to find yet more efficiencies. They won't be able to if more money isn't forthcoming. And the social care sector here and elsewhere is in real danger of falling over. I wanted to talk briefly about the GP task group. It's welcome news that the leader is part of the overarching work that's going on in North Kent. I'm very hopeful that the task group work can feed into that. It's been extremely worthwhile and I thank all the officers and the professionals who very willingly engage with us, and we've got more to come. And one of the things I would say, we're seeing the pharmacy group next week, and I'm very aware, and was looking at the pharmaceutical needs assessment report, of poor pharmacy provision, particularly for late nights out on the peninsula. It's very difficult for people who live there to get into a pharmacy after 5 o'clock. There are late night pharmacies in other parts of Medway, but it means a long travel, and I've heard of people even travelling to London to get a prescription there. So whatever we do with the pharmaceutical needs assessment and the new group, we need to consider that particular area of our towns.
Thank you very much. Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to my colleague, Councillor Wildey, for supporting this report. Members may or may not be aware that I was scheduled to have a total knee replacement in the last couple of weeks, which unfortunately has been delayed, hence why I'm here this evening. So, Madam Mayor, scrutiny is the activity of change of decisions and policies to ensure the best possible outcome for all of Medway's residents. We also know that scrutiny is a requirement to improve corporate governance by ensuring openness, accountability and transparency in decision-making. Many decisions that affect communities will be made by the communities themselves. Decisions are also made by council officers, by the council's executive and by full council. Whilst the executive proposes and implements policy, the remaining councillors play a vital scrutiny role in committees. Therefore, those who serve on scrutiny committees should not come with preconceived ideas and a closed mind, but rather an inquisitive nature, ensuring an open mind regardless of political persuasion. Madam Mayor, I'm going to cut this really short with all the notes I have here. But basically, what I wish to state very clearly, that Medway residents can have full confidence in the scrutiny process that takes place, ensures that this administration is in their best interest, not only individually, but as Medway as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Andy Stamp.
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. I wanted to highlight a couple of items that were raised at the last Regen ONS meeting in October. Firstly, in relation to the waste contract and in particular the recycling rates, where it was reported that the percentage of waste recycled in Medway has actually fallen by 1.5% this year to just 40%, which is significantly below the national average of 44% and way below that of our neighbouring borough Maidstone, who achieved a recycling rate of 51% this year. It's really worrying that despite recycling rates flatlining in recent years in Medway, the current administration appears to have no clear strategy for increasing Medway's recycling rate, and the fact that we have gone backwards this year speaks volumes. Secondly, we also had the pleasure of holding Councillor Chitty to account on her portfolio at the last meeting. In relation to the local plan and Chatham docks, I explained to Councillor Chitty that the businesses located at Chatham docks had written to the leader of the council and the chief executive on the 25th of November 21, asking the council to explore opportunities for using compulsory purchase powers, which would secure the long-term future of the businesses at the docks, along with thousands of jobs. The letter was written after the role of compulsory purchase was positively supported by Councillor Chitty at Medway's full council meeting on the 7th of October 2021. However, at the Regen ONS meeting last month, to my amazement, Councillor Chitty denied having ever seen a copy of that letter. So, for the avoidance of doubt, a copy of the letter has been placed on every councillor's desk tonight, including yours, Councillor Chitty. The letter was sent 350 days ago, so hopefully at least an acknowledgement will now be received before its first anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Halcroft-Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, my comments are really about the scrutiny of children, really. I work on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for Children's Services, and Josie Isles is on that committee as well. We have a really hard-working aspirations officer who has done a fantastic job with the children in care who are not in education or employment or training needs. However, we discovered this week that she's on a temporary contract. She has 5 months left. She's done an absolute sterling job. And my worries are, you know, if we are going to be a child-centred Medway, a child-friendly Medway, then our most vulnerable children deserve aspirational officers not to be on fixed-term contracts, but to be there to have them, to have their support, to make their lives a success. After all, their birth parents aren't there. And this fabulous lady did a presentation for us. She had no long-term security of tenure for her job. She's not likely to be promoted. And I have to say, we hear that Councillor Jarrett didn't spend money and sent it back to central government. So our children suffer and have to work with different people. And she's so talented that I reckon she'll be poached for KCC or down the road in Greenwich.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I can echo what Councillor Halcroft-Scott has said because she is absolutely brilliant. She's a brilliant officer and she should be full-time. Interestingly, I'm going to ask about the same committee meeting, 29th of September, Children's Overview and Scrutiny, and the free school meals debacle. We had a very long and protracted discussion about this, and in the end, we put our motion forward, and it was, unfortunately, not agreed to by the administration. Now, I watched the Business Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I did see the fact that Councillor Jarrett actually apologised for getting this decision wrong. So I wish to know if members of the ONS committee, led by Councillor Kemp, seconded by Councillor O'Para, will also tonight apologise for getting this decision wrong, because it made a lot of upset people and families were suffering because of this. Fortunately, I do know some that have got their vouchers now, so that's good. But I would really like to have an apology from the members of the Conservative Party on our committee to apologise to those out there. Secondly, the Medway Youth Awards were brilliant last night, but I would also like to take time to say something about the Time to Shine Awards, because this is for our children and young people who are in care. We had a really, really good event at the Corn Exchange, and Councillor Aldis was there, and also Councillor Isles, who did a sterling job in chairing it, really. She did well. But it was a magnificent event, and we need to know that this is going to be happening again. We discussed this at the recent corporate parenting meeting, and we think that it's a very good event, and it should be continued. So that's all I've got to say, but I really would like an apology for members of the CYP committee who actually agreed with the urgency decision, which turned out to be wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At our October meeting of the Regeneration, Culture and Environment Committee, we discovered from the portfolio holder, Councillor Chitty, that not a single company had yet signed on the dotted line for a site at Innovation Park Medway. There are lots of risks associated with this flagship project that need to be carefully managed if it is to be a success, and we are to build a thriving site for research and development in Medway. I sincerely hope that we are not building a big white elephant, so I look forward to discussing the progress at Innovation Park Medway at the committee early next year, when hopefully there will be some assurances given on the commercial occupancy at the site. At that same meeting, we also discussed the state of the bus network with the portfolio holder, Councillor Filmer, and I must say I did not see evidence of the political commitment that I think is needed to improve Medway's bus network. The bus service improvement plan from October last year said that the council would work with bus drivers to explore opportunities for improved frequencies on key corridors and have a simpler fare structure. But 1 year on, sadly, the reality is that things are getting worse rather than better. Arriva is reducing the frequency of many of our local bus services, including the 145 from Chatham to Warren Wood that goes through my ward. In my view, Medway's bus system is in a state of managed decline. Yes, there are commercial challenges in the sector, but all the more reason why we need political leadership to make a well-functioning bus network a priority here in Medway and to find solutions for those challenges. We need a much bolder strategy to deliver greener buses, better linkages between the towns, and a fare structure that incentivises people to actually start using our buses more, not least because a sustainable bus network is absolutely crucial if we are ever to break our heavy reliance on cars and meet the Council's own climate change obligations and goals. And I hope that after next May, members on this side of the chamber will have the opportunity to pursue that important goal.
Thank you. I'm sorry we've run out of time. I must return to Councillor Wildey. Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to pick up Councillor Murray's comments about the GP task group. There are problems meeting with GPs. As of today, it may change tomorrow because we have meetings tomorrow. We haven't spoken to any working GPs or working in Medway GPs as of now. I can quite understand they've got better things to do than talk about their problems, so I'm not complaining at all. They are very busy people. Now, Councillor Murray talks often long and loud about the GP task group, which I'm pleased that it's promoted. I would just be a little bit more pleased if she would please attend more than half the meetings, if that's possible. I know we all have busy lives, but, you know, if you're going to keep talking about a particular meeting, you should be able to attend them or simply get someone else to take your place. On health, I'd like to talk about something positive. The government have made funding available, which ICB put in a bid for and was awarded for the Community Diagnostic Centre. This will be based at Sheppey Community Hospital and at Rochester Healthy Living Centre. This will provide the provision of imaging, psychological measurement and pathological tests and scans at these sites over the next 3 years, which will deliver significant additional diagnostic capacity in the system. This will help to support COVID-19 recovery plans as well as future growth in demand. This is money that our government, that's been criticised today, has put into the system to help support COVID, etc. We've heard lots about trashing people's finance. Now, a lot of that has come from COVID, the dealings with COVID, a war, etc., etc. We did not have 8 of the best years that the country's ever seen and still had to leave government with notes saying, I'm sorry, there's nothing in the kitty. You know, people in glass houses, etc. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Buckwell, may I return to you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank members for their comments. I'll be brief. I can't respond on behalf of individual portfolio holders whose views have been referred to by opposition members this evening, but I'll make 1 or 2 comments. With respect to the task group referred to, I strongly supported that, and by majority, my committee supported that, but it seems from what Councillor Wardy has said that the committee itself is having the same problem as many patients of practices at the moment in not being able to meet with GPs either. That maybe is at the heart of these issues, but I welcome that progress has been made. On the electoral matter, Councillor Maple raised an important matter. The Association of Electoral Administrators has expressed concerns. Aspects of the bill have been delayed. Certain changes which are related, which set out in the Act, have been delayed from coming into force. We'll have to see what happens, but the provision of identity is a brand new and a revolutionary provision that every elector is required to get used to under the legislation if they vote in person. So we take that concern seriously, and our committee referred to that. The principles of scrutiny were referred to by my colleague Councillor Etheridge, and I think he set that out very well, and I support that. In relation to the issue of free school meals, the leader was very candid when held to account at business support, and I compliment him on that. And I think Councillor Maple did as well in his own way. And it's right that if in hindsight, and there is a certain Captain Hindsight still around, I think, but if in hindsight one makes a decision which would have been better made with another outcome, then admitting it, you know, is politically the right thing to do. So I welcome the awards that have been referred to, particularly by Councillor Cooper, and we share in that, and we celebrate people's successes. So, Madam Mayor, there's nothing further I would want to add, but I would again ask for members' support in noting the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Backwell. Is that agreed? Item 10. We're now moving to members' questions. We now have 20 minutes to deal with 19 questions listed on the agenda from members of the Council. Any questions not dealt with this evening will receive a written response. I think that's it. Let's start with Councillor Van Dyke. Would you like to, may I have your question, please?
The Department for Health and Social Care has recently instructed hospital trusts to reintroduce parking charges for hospital staff after withdrawing the subsidy paid to trusts during the pandemic when charges for staff were waived. Medway Maritime Hospital faces a recruitment crisis and the threat of industrial action because staff salaries are not keeping up with the cost of living. Will the portfolio holder show his support for our local NHS staff by joining me in writing to the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care demanding that car parking charges for hospital staff are abolished with immediate effect?
Thank you very much. Councillor Brake, would you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Van Dijk, for your question. This was actually raised at the annual meeting of the Medway Hospital Trust and was discussed at length. Whilst I can understand that this is a big concern for NHS staff, especially given the current circumstances, where there are a multitude of train and bus strikes, leaving many no alternative option but to drive or use a taxi, which are both more expensive. I'm sure it would also be a big concern for patients and visitors to the hospitals too, given the dramatic increase in the cost of living at the moment. So the question really is, if NHS staff are given free parking, is this also given to visitors as well? The charge was dropped during the COVID and lockdown, an unprecedented event to encourage people to use their cars so they could socially distance and protect themselves instead of using public transport, which could have meant potential exposure to COVID, which they could then bring into vulnerable patients. This has now eased, and so we return to what we had before. Charges made to Medway Hospital Trust for staff, patient and or visitors car parking are used to help cover the cost of the running and maintenance of these facilities, thus allowing NHS finance in the main to be used directly to the benefit of patients and hospital staff. Given these circumstances, it would not be appropriate to raise the matter with the Secretary of State. However, it would be appropriate for staff members to write and raise their concerns with their local Member of Parliament. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hubbard, may I have your question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is the view of many that the new Maritime Academy should be located on Strood Riverside, a town centre site with great access for those walking, cycling or using public transport. The secondary school's proposed site on Finsbury Hill will just add to the levels of traffic congestion and pollution. Maritime Academy opened its temporary Twiddle Primary School located doors this September. The busing arrangements, delivering and collecting students living in the Strood and Finsbury area are in place. I am confident the Academy staff are doing their very best. However, the government is continuing a very poor record on delivery of new schools in Medway. And the other example mentioned again earlier this evening is the delayed Rochester Primary School. There is no sign of any building work on the Academy's Finsbury site. This is simply not good enough. There are only pre-works that are related to reptile translocation and additional archaeological investigations. Can the portfolio holder give any guarantee to the Maritime Academy students, their parents and staff at the school the school will be finally open its Finsbury doors by September 2024?
Thank you. Councillor Riles, would you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your question, Councillor Hubbard. The Department for Education is leading on this project, as it falls under the central government's free school programme. Medway Council officers are in regular contact with the DFE on this matter to keep abreast of progress and developments. Whilst work is yet to commence on the site due to continuing additional archaeological investigations, we are advised that a full start on site date early in 2023 is anticipated, which would enable the completion of the new school provision in readiness for the September 2024 academic year. As with any building project, there are circumstances which may cause the delay of a project once started, but we will continue to work closely with the Trust and the DFE to assist in mitigating and resolving any issues that may arise. I would like to take the opportunity to praise the Thinking Schools Trust, the Maritime Academy, its members of staff and pupils who have settled extremely well into the temporary premises, which provides all the specialist areas of a secondary school requires, and to also thank Twiddle Primary School and the Rain and Mark Educational Trust for making the buildings available for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Edwards, may I have your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The majority of businesses in Medway are small businesses. They underpin our local economy, serve the community, and provide jobs for local people. But they are facing eye-watering energy price bills from April next year when the energy bill release scheme is due to end. The Federation of Small Businesses' recent report out in the cold found that 2/3 of small firms say their energy costs have increased compared to last year, and 96% of small businesses are concerned about rising energy bills. Will the Council write to the Government to urge it to either extend the energy bill relief scheme beyond the 31st of March 2023 or develop a follow-up scheme to continue financial support for small businesses during this energy cost crisis? All signs point to steep energy prices, providing challenging circumstances for small businesses beyond the immediate winter period, and this is particularly so for energy-intensive businesses like hospitality. Without ongoing support, many of Medway's small businesses may struggle to survive, so we need Medway Council to be a strong voice urging central government to give them more support.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chitty, will you please respond?
Thank you. I'm delighted actually to say that we have discussed this issue with small businesses earlier in the week. They are concerned, of course they are, and they are looking to face what could be a really challenging time. The decision at that meeting of Medway Small Businesses was to make representation to all three MPs, because this is where it actually matters. But I would also like to add that there are larger companies within Medway whose bills are quite astonishing when you look at it in relation to what it is. This is a challenge. It's a challenge that has to be faced. We've made recommendations through the small business group and to all three MPs, and I'm absolutely certain that this will be an ongoing challenge. I know that there will be some relief, the energy price guarantee, but of course we don't know the facts of that, and we won't know presumably until the budget, and then we'll all be better able to make correct assessments as to the challenges ahead.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maple, may I have your question, please?
Thank you very much, Mayor Aldous. My question's for the Leader of the Council. As Medway's population faces the cost of living crisis fuelled by steeply rising energy costs, inflation at over 10%, with food and fuel inflation well above that figure, and other financial pressures caused by the government's mismanagement, would the Leader of the Council update Council on the lessons learnt regarding the incredibly disappointing returning of £350,000 of unspent household support funding earlier this year, whilst clarifying what measures are in place to ensure this never happens again?
Thank you. Councillor Jarrett, would you please respond?
Yes, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Maple. You heard my explanation about the 350,000 earlier, but I'll just go into a bit more detail. The government announced the Household Support Fund on the 30th of September 2021 and set Medway Council's allocation for the period 1st of October 21 to 31st of March 22 at 2.262 million, just over. Using the urgency provisions, I agreed on behalf of the Cabinet this allocation would be used to do the following: provide vouchers at £15 per week for the then estimated 10,000 free school meals eligible children for the school holidays in October and December 21 and in February 22, at the time estimated to cost £670,000. Provide grants to charities providing food of £150,000. An allowance to cover reasonable administrative costs at £70,000. And for the balance of the fund, estimated at £1.372 million, to be provided to individuals making claims for support via a new online form and officer referral process. Officers worked hard to implement the scheme as quickly as possible while following the proper procurement processes to select the company through which vouchers will be provided, to set up the partnership with the Fuel Bank Foundation and to advertise the scheme with residents and partner organisations. The scheme was very successful, and through it we provided 1.367 million to support with food costs, 62,589 to support with energy and water costs, and £374,306 to support with wider essentials through more than 73,000 awards. Later tranches of the scheme have benefited from the work already done to set up contracts and administrative arrangements. The Council received the same allocation, £2.262 million, for the period 1st of April to the 30th of September 2022, and I'm pleased to confirm that the full allocation was distributed to Medway's residents, as I said earlier, with the exception of 11 pence. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Andy Stamp, may I have your question?
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. The large retaining wall on the A289 Pier Road in Gillingham has been structurally unsound for well over a decade and is in desperate need of repair. Whilst DFT transport funding has been secured so that permanent repairs can finally be carried out next year, the temporary blue hoardings have been in place since 2009. Residents and ward councillors have long complained that the hoardings are not only an eyesore, but they restrict visibility and cause road safety issues for drivers, cyclists and pedestrians using this busy dual carriageway. To my dismay, it recently came to light that the council do not actually own the temporary blue hoardings, including the steel propping behind, and council taxpayers have been paying to hire them for the past 13 years. Can the portfolio holder therefore provide a breakdown of the total hire costs for these hoardings, including the structural steel props, since they were installed in 2009?
Thank you. Councillor Hackwell, would you please respond on behalf of Councillor Filmer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your question, Councillor Stamp. I can confirm that we installed the hoardings in 2009 after the wall was identified as a serious health and safety risk, albeit this structure was not originally identified as a council asset. Nevertheless, we are bound under the duty of care to safeguard our residents, even though there was uncertainty around who the landlord was. We appreciate the hoardings may have been perceived as unsightly. However, the installation of the hoarding was necessary, as explained above, to be the safest course of action at that time to safeguard against injury. In situations like this, especially where there is an uncertainty around the land ownership, hiring the hoardings and props is the most prudent option given potential maintenance costs and the liability risks associated with outright ownership. We appreciate the time it has taken to carry out the full construction works, which unfortunately have been protracted due to the difficulties in defining land ownership with this wall. We've only had very recently received permission from the landowner above the wall to progress with the works, which we were hoping will commence in Q1 of 2023. Whilst the weekly cost for this hoarding is £75, when considered against the risk of injury, we believe the safety benefits of the hoarding far outweigh the costs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cooper, may I have your question, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for the portfolio holder for Children's Services. Following the administration's callous decision to refuse to fund support for children eligible for free school meals over the summer break and its subsequent U-turn, would the portfolio holder agree that auto-enrolment for free school meals in Medway would support struggling Medway families and would boost school budgets? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arles, would you respond, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cooper, for your question. All children attending school in reception, Year 1 and Year 2, are entitled to a school meal free of charge. The Education Act 1996 requires maintained schools and academies, including free schools, to provide free school meals to disadvantaged pupils who are aged between 5 and 16 years old. The government set the eligibility criteria for free school meals, which are listed on .gov.uk and on the Council's website, but can be summarised as entitlement to means-tested benefits. Data on which school children are eligible is held by the government, but the current national free school meal system is set up so that local authorities and/or individual schools must administer claims and assess eligibility locally. Schools are primarily funded via the government allocations of the Dedicated Schools Grant, DSG. However, in addition to the DSG, Pupil Premium Grant, PBG, is paid to schools separately as a grant to improve the attainment of pupils from deprived backgrounds. PPG allocations to schools are made based on the number of pupils eligible for a free school meal, looked after children and children with a parent in the armed forces. Government estimates on claim rates indicate that automatic enrolment could capture the 11% of eligible school children, estimated 215,000 nationally, who have not yet taken up the offer. If the government facilitates auto-enrolment by providing local authorities and/or schools with information on eligible children, and this results in more eligible children assessing free school meals in Medway, the Medway schools' PPG allocations would increase. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murray, may I have your question, please?
Thank you, Mayor Alders. My question is for Councillor Josie Isles. The Local Government Association has determined that 28% of Healthy Start vouchers remain unclaimed in Medway, constituting over 800 families who are potentially missing out on healthy food. What has the portfolio holder done in the past year to increase the take-up of Healthy Start vouchers for families facing the cost of living crisis?
Thank you very much. Councillor Josie Isles, would you please respond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your question, Councillor Murray. It is worth noting that the Healthy Start scheme is an NHS scheme, rather one that is led by the Council. However, our administration has been promoting the scheme through several different pathways to build on our 72% rate in March 2022. The scheme helps eligible pregnant women or those with a child aged under 4 on low incomes to obtain food, milk and vitamins. Vouchers are issued to families directly by the NHS, with local authorities helping to promote uptake. Colleagues will have heard about our multi-agency food partnership. Through this, we have been promoting the voucher scheme across a wide range of partners and generally increasing awareness. Also, our officers share the information with pregnant women in our public health services and with families through Family Solutions, and promote awareness through our website for the Healthy Early Years Award. Finally, we recognise the importance of the role of the health professional in signposting to such schemes. Our health visitors across the Medway towns promote the availability of Healthy Start vouchers through antenatal contact when they introduce the Healthy Start programme. They work with the families to discover whether they are eligible, and if so, signpost them to how to apply if required. When they see the family again, whether a follow-up contact, new birth visit and subsequent contacts, they discuss the health benefits of the vitamins that are available through the scheme and ensure they are receiving the benefits from the scheme that they are entitled to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've now used up the allocated time for the members' questions, so we move on to item 11, Council Strategy Refresh 2023 to 24. Councillor Hackwell, would you like to make your proposal?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is item 11 on page 109 of your report. As you probably know, the Council's strategy sets out the Council's key priorities, the outcomes we expect to achieve and the programmes that we will deliver. The council plan is the delivery plan which sets out the measures that will be used to track performance against the council's key priorities. This is a very light touch review, and a more fundamental refresh of the council strategy plan is planned for next year following the 2023 local elections. The changes are basically some wordsmithing under the Resilient Families and Children's Education, which is detailed on the report and highlighted in Appendix 1. The report has been considered by both Business OS and Cabinet, and the recommendations are set out on page 10, in section 10, sorry, on page 112, and it's to note the comments of the Business and Support Overview Committee and the recommendation, and to adopt the council strategy as set out in Appendix 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is that supported?
Yes, Madam Mayor, and I reserve the right to speak.
Wonderful. Thank you. We now go on to the debate. Councillor Maple, would you like to start us off?
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. I'll keep it brief because there's a lot to get through tonight. This council gives us an unlimited amount of time to talk about the money we're going to spend. It doesn't give us, you'll be pleased to know, an unlimited amount of time about the plan on how we spend it. Although I'm sure listening unlimitedly to Councillor Hackwell would be a much better than at least watching other politicians chewing on marsupials, who knows what. So we won't be supporting this tonight, Mayor Aldous, and the reason for that simply is because we don't agree with a budget that puts it in place. That's well documented. We don't disagree with every line of the document, despite what some people might have you believe, and we don't disagree with every line of the budget, despite what some people trot out on an almost monthly basis. So on that basis, Mayor Aldous, the Labour Group will be voting against the refresh tonight.
Thank you very much. Councillor Doe, do you wish to speak now? I'll go to the vote.
Say that I think it's very lazy, frankly, simply to say that you don't object to it entirely, you don't make it clear to what you object, so you'll just vote against it. I think it's pathetic.
Right, we will now go to the vote. Oh, back to Councillor Hackwell, sorry.
I've got nothing more to add, Madam Mayor.
We now go to the vote. Those in favour? Oh, put your card up. Those against?
It's carried.
It's carried. Thank you very much. Item 12, Splashes Sports Centre. Before I ask Councillor Doe to make a proposal, the Council is recommended to resolve to exclude the press and public during consideration of any information contained in the exempt appendix to this item as set out on item 20, page 211 of the agenda, on the basis that the public interest in maintaining the exception outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. However, we will proceed to the debate in open session unless any member indicates they wish to refer to information contained in the blue papers, at which point I will ask the Council to vote on excluding the press and public. If we do resolve to exclude the press and the public, I will ask that the public gallery is cleared and that live stream broadcast is paused during the debate. Councillor Doe, would you please like to make your proposal?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, can I say that it gives me no pleasure to bring this forward at an increased cost. But I think that, first of all, I would say that this is a time, really, when one has to seriously consider whether you have the guts to actually carry through what you say that you're going to do. I think that the We tried, of course, to get this through quickly because we anticipated, I think, there was a contingency there, we anticipated that there would be a rise in costs. However, there's not just been a rise in costs, there's been an absolute cataclysm of costs. But the cost of materials has gone up enormously, largely due to the war in Ukraine. Fuel costs have rocketed, which of course puts prices up. Labour is short as well, and so it's been extremely difficult for contractors to maintain their prices, and I do understand that. However, due to a number of factors, I think that we should carry on now. I think to give up would be pathetic. I think the cost of withdrawal and reinstatement would mean that we would spend several £million in the sense of writing that all off, and then, of course, we would have the cost of reinstatement and at the end of it, nothing, all of which, of course, would be charged against this year's revenue budget. If we defer this scheme to a later date, as some people have proposed, then all that will happen is that the price will simply go up. There's no easy ride to this. And I think that we've got to bear in mind that this is not just a centre for the people of Rainham, but actually serves a number of our Medway communities, including Twiddle and Hempstead and Watling, and many people come from outside the area as well. And if we are serious in our credentials to become a child-friendly city, then this kind of provision for children is extremely important. And I do urge you still to maintain the confidence that you've shown in backing this scheme to date. I think that although it doesn't please me to have increased costs, I think we have managed to have a good go at shaving the costs without any loss of quality. That will continue. But I take the view that there's no value engineering in terms of engineering the value down. What we need to do all the time, all through the contract, is to be extremely forceful in making sure that we make all the savings that are possible without any detriment to it. And for these reasons, I would like to propose the recommendation in 12.1, which you will find on, when I can find the page, on page 127 at the bottom, that the Council is recommended to agree the addition of 5.8 million to the Splashes Redevelopment Scheme Capital Programme to enable development of the new Splashes Sports Centre. I do hope that members will have the courage to realise the value of this project and to enable it to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that supported? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Did you want to speak now or reserve your right? Thank you very much. Councillor Maple.
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. For clarity, nobody on the Labour group will be wanting to go into closed session tonight, so I don't think that will be happening. We will be moving an amendment which will be circulated now.
Thank you, Councillor Maple. Would you like to move your...
Orders. Many politicians talk about a magic money tree, but it seems we finally found where it's buried, somewhere, by the looks of it, in Cossington Park. Because, Madam Mayor, colleagues in the chamber will probably go, that looks a bit familiar when looking at the amendment, and that's because it is a bit familiar. Because on this side of the chamber, we're not just worried about the budget up to and including May the 4th, we're a bit worried about it afterwards as well. So that's why we're asking what we think is the prudent, rational thing to do. If we're looking to add millions of pounds more of pressures onto taxpayers of Medway at a time when we have no idea what the incoming Chancellor, if he's still Chancellor by the 17th of November, will say to us about local government finance, I'm not sure it's going to be a joyous picture. I'm concerned about what we're going to end up with. So it's absolutely right, before we take yet another decision to add millions of pounds of pressure to taxpayers of Medway, to understand how are we going to manage that. We as a council, 55 of us, understanding actually the cost of borrowing, in this case now going up to £1.6 million, and accepting it's not opening probably until the following financial year, how are we going to find £500,000 that we're currently not paying to make sure that it covers its costs? So this is not a small amount of taxpayers' money. And I've had Conservative councillors say to me privately, they wouldn't want to spend this money. This is a financial pressure. Now, I won't name who they are. They know who they are. So from that perspective, I'm very clear that it's right that this council, even more so than actually in July, are looking at this and saying, actually, how are we going to make this work? Because actually, this is a big addition to the pressures that we find ourselves in. The pressures on adult social care, as Councillor Murray spoke about earlier on. The pressures that we know we will continue to have to make sure that we make Ofsted work and we get to a point which we have a service our children deserve. So look, I want to see an exciting, vibrant regeneration programme, but I want one that cuts its cloth. I want one which taxpayers will not be in fear of what they're going to lose because it's coming forward. So that's why we bring this forward. If you can get it ready before the January full council meeting, I'm really pleased to see a special full council, because taxpayers will want to know as soon as possible how we're going to make this happen. So if you can do it before January the 19th, that's great. Bring that meeting forward. But taxpayers deserve to know how this is going to be funded, because at the time of crisis, we need to watch every penny.
Thank you. Is that supported? Thank you, Councillor. Do you wish to speak now? Or... Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. I'd certainly echo Councillor Maple's comments around a special full council meeting to bring this forward as soon as possible, to not delay the process even further. Because as elected members, we are all accountable for how public money is spent. And the financial sums highlighted in the report this evening are quite staggering. In my 15 plus years on Medway Council, I've never seen the costs of any council project escalate so significantly in such a short space of time, from an initial refurbishment cost of £5 million to almost £18 million in July, and now less than 4 months later to an eye-watering £23.65 million. And that's just the build costs. The biggest financial risk is arguably the ongoing annual revenue costs of £2.1 million. £1.6 million servicing the loan, plus the other £500,000 annual subsidy to operate the centre. It's worth noting that when the Labour group put forward a similar motion back in July, the ongoing revenue costs were estimated to be approximately £900,000 per year, less than half the amount we're being asked to sign off on tonight. And the risk management section of the report on page 125 is also very concerning, identifying affordability as the greatest threat to the project. It concludes that there is a very high likelihood that going ahead with the project right now will have a critical impact on council finances. Finding the £2.1 million is not insurmountable, but it could have a significant impact on our resources at a time when the Council is facing a huge financial hole in its budget, and which could jeopardise the provision of other core council services for the next 30 years. It's therefore prudent and sensible that we ask officers to prepare a detailed report identifying options to find the £2.1 million per year to fund splashes. Without such a report, we are being asked to give the green light for a project without any ongoing funding streams, which in my view would be financially irresponsible and arguably reckless. Perhaps even more importantly, in light of the splashes fiasco, it would be good to review all of Medway's other sports and leisure facilities so that we know what the scale of our financial liabilities are regarding the condition and ongoing maintenance of our existing leisure assets. This amendment really is a no-brainer. Without it, the current administration could be jeopardising vital council services which thousands of Medway residents currently rely on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rupert Turpin. We are debating the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have never voted against the Conservative administration in all my time on the council, which is 11 years. However, I have to say that what is said, just been said, makes an awful lot of sense. And I've been coming independently to the same conclusion myself. I've been asking questions about what the budgetary context of this is. In other words, what cuts to other services are we going to have to make in order to fund this, fund splashes? And let me be quite clear, I'm very supportive of splashes. I just can't see the policy vacuum and the budgetary vacuum that this is taking part in. I think if we had a delay of a few months, we could knit this in with the budget setting process, and then we would have a choice of what level of spending we'd spend on splashes and what services we would have to cut elsewhere. Some of these services are statutory services. They're keeping people alive. So it's really, really important that we don't just do it now in a budgetary vacuum. There's two other things as well. First of all, we've got this lack of a sports strategy. We've got older sports centres. The one in Who is 50 years old. What are the people of Who going to think if later on in a year's time they're told, well, you can't have any money because it's all been spent on splashes, so you won't get anything, and your one is so old now that we're actually going to close it down? Do we have any idea of the level of need elsewhere in the borough? Do we have a strategic approach where we actually take a holistic view across the whole of Medway? And thirdly, we're in a crisis time at the moment. We've got a budget being prepared nationally. The Chancellor will be telling us what such items as the council tax is going to be, what the funding level for local government is going to be. That will set the context for our budget. With that information, we can then present the clear choices of how we are going to fund this. So we've got a national issues, and the last national issue is we've got the highest fixed interest rates for multi-year highs. So if we take out a fixed loan now, we're going to be paying the highest rate that we have for many years. Now, the predictions are that inflation will be under control by the middle of next year, at which time interest rates will be lower. So we could get a loan which is millions of pounds cheaper and will save us millions of pounds by just delaying for another 6 months or so. We can then perhaps take advantage of those loans and come out and say, phew, thank goodness we didn't take out a fixed loan at the worst possible time. I know prices have gone up, but if we take a fixed loan out now...
Thank you very much, Councillor
Can I just say,
No.
I want to ask
Councillor
the legal
Murray.
officer for...
Councillor Murray.
I have a request of the legal officer over whether the Wednesbury principles for decision-making have been broken by this decision in the policy vacuum that we've got.
Thank you. I think members are all reasonably familiar with the Wednesbury principles in relation to public law decision making. The absence of a policy would not necessarily make any decision in relation to this unlawful, because it would in my opinion, not necessarily be unreasonable. The legal definition of what amounts to be Wednesbury unreasonableness is a decision that would be so unreasonable that no other right-thinking public body, knowing all of the facts, would make a decision that was being proposed to be made. Now, it's for members to make that decision and come to a view as to whether they think the decision that is being proposed is Wednesbury reasonableness or not. That's not for me to make.
Thank you very much. Right, Councillor Murray, may I have your...
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. Look, for the avoidance of doubt, I've got, and the Labour group has got, some admiration for having ambition about a really good facility and don't want to deny anybody in Medway the opportunity to have that. And the history of splashes recently has been a very checkered one. And one of the concerns that I've got, accepting absolutely that swimming is perhaps the most accessible sport. It's something that anyone can do at their own level, and you don't need loads of equipment to enjoy it, and it's something that families can do together. Excuse me, there are lots and lots of positive things associated with this. However, this amendment is a sensible checks and balances amendment to avoid disaster in the future. And the points that Councillor Turpin has just made are very well made, and my colleague, Councillor Andy Stamp, has highlighted a situation that I'm particularly worried about. That is the state of our other 4, not forgetting the Strand, swimming pools. None of those 4 swimming pools at the moment are in the state that I would want them to be. They've all got scruffy changing rooms. They've got parts of poor access. There are cracked tiles. They're not in a state where you could safely say that in a couple of years' time they won't as well need refurbishment. And I think all of the people that use those, for whom splashes, isn't an accessible place, would feel, as has been suggested, that their needs are not being taken into account by this huge expenditure. The amendment is not asking, for the world. It's asking for a prudent, objective, hard look at whether or not we're able to afford this. And I suggest to you that if we don't take into account the whole of the swimming part of the currently sort of non-existent sports strategy, we'll find ourselves one by one with the other swimming pools in the same sort of situation that Splashes found itself in when we had all of the problems with contamination there.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I wish to, again, support this amendment. It's notable that Councillor Doe mentioned at the start about costs around labour costs, the war in Ukraine, and material costs. Of course, all of these things might change when, if indeed the war in Ukraine ends over the next 12 to 18 months or 2 years. So he's mentioned limited reasons why costs have gone up, but negates the fact that actually that might be a reason why costs might go down in the future. And so actually making the case that perhaps now isn't the right time when costs are extremely high. So he's made a case there. But let's, looking back at this, I mean, I'm afraid this Tory administration, just like the Tory government, has crashed the economy nationally, and I'm afraid looking at this, this paper tonight is looking at the same sort of calculus. We have not had budget proposals. The medium-term financial statement is not published. And it looks like, again, that this administration, and we've had a litany of this over the last 5 years, has a tendency to borrow on the never-never, and then budgets spiral out of control, and we end up with a white elephant that is embarrassing. Everyone here wants a strong leisure and capable leisure operation with services for our residents. And indeed, we want to see a Splashes which is fully costed and delivers for the people of Rainham. But what we don't want, okay, is a agenda and a timeline that's designed to fit the electoral aspirations of a failing cohort of Rainham councillors. And quite frankly, our budgets are worth more than that. And this isn't about a leaflet they can put out that that can attack the opposition or whoever they might feel. This is about public taxpayers' money and what is the best. And even your own backbenchers, so you haven't even got your own side on this, are privately telling us that this is a white elephant designed to keep happy one or two of your front bench colleagues. And that is outrageous, and it's no wonder that your backbench colleague back there has mentioned the aspiration to the legal officer tonight about whether this is a reasoned judgment. And I think some of you uranium councillors need to really focus on that. This proposal, the Labour Group wants to see fully costed and reasonable proposals for splashes. We support the provision of leisure facilities on that site, but it cannot be an open end and an open checkbook. And this motion is reasonable. We believe that we need to have a prudent and sensible hard look at the finances across leisure, because as my colleague Councillor Murray has mentioned, a number of our facilities are in a poor state. And I think having that report come back in January is a prudent course of action, and I will support that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth Turpin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to speak on the original recommendation, but I think it's still relevant to speak on this amendment. The rebuild of splashes is something that I've supported since it was demolished last year. Despite it being some distance from residents in my ward of Strood Rural, it's a facility that many families enjoyed using and would like to see replaced. I was concerned back in July here in this chamber the council was asked to approve 12 million to fund this rebuild before completing the tender process, as it did not seem the right way to go about things. However, I accepted that time was of the essence and that we needed to get moving with this project. However, since then, financially, we are in a more uncertain period now than we were just a few months ago. A further almost 6 million, taking this total cost to over 23.5 million, now seems financially too risky at this time. As 10.5 informs us, the net revenue impact of the operating costs and financing costs on the council's budget would represent a pressure of at least 2.1 million per annum. It is not unreasonable to know now where that 2.1 million will come from. I say this with the closure of Deangate Ridge Golf Course in 2018 in mind. This was closed due to the financial pressure of around 200,000 on the council each year. When this decision was taken, there were promises made to look into a new sports provision for the peninsula to not only replace the golf course, but also in time to replace the now 50-year-old leisure centre in Hoo. This work has not been done despite more housing being approved and delivered on the peninsula in the past 4 years, and of course with the current plans of building 10,000 plus homes. I feel that despite it falling outside of this current year's budget, we need to know in some detail how this project will be funded over the next 30 years, by which time it will have costed 48 million. Also, in the absence of an up-to-date sports strategy, there is not a holistic approach currently, and therefore a possible overspend on one project would have a devastating impact on sports development elsewhere in the borough, and I feel a case of, sorry, we have now run out of money as a response. I would prefer to see a strategic approach to being taken which takes into account the full budget setting process. It is for those reasons that I did not feel confident enough to support the original recommendation this evening, but feel that this amendment addresses my concerns. Thank you.
Councillor Jarrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There were some interesting comments, and members are right to be concerned about the costs, but there are two issues, really. There is the capital issue and the revenue issues that to fund the capital. Now, first of all, in terms of process, you cannot go out to tender before you allocate a budget. You just cannot do that. You have to have the funding in place before you can go out to tender. That's just the way it works, and people need to understand that. The tender was, we went out to tender based on QS estimates of costs, and plus a contingency, and I'm not a great fan of contingencies because they tend to get spent irrespective, but nonetheless with a substantial contingency. So we went out to tender on that basis, and the costs came back something like 38% over. Now that's not because we got the QS rather got the estimates wrong. It's because of the volatility of the market, and we've seen it with other projects across Medway, across the county and across the country. What we've done is drive a hard bargain with the winning tender, and that's in the blue pages, so I won't refer to that, to hold that price, irrespective of continuing inflationary pressures, up until tomorrow, until Council makes its decision. I fear if we go to the market again, it will cost even more. So we have to decide whether we want that leisure offer or not. I think all the talk about what there is at Who is not relevant in this context at all. That will be dealt with during the developments at Who that we all know are coming. Who Development Framework refers to that. The second issue in terms of the revenue costs, that will be part of the budget build, but the most of that budget build exercise will be the following budget, because these costs will not be a full year effect in the 23-24 budget, and it's important to hang on to that. And these costs are estimates over a period of time, as the report sets out. The running costs are estimates, because I'm sure that Councillor Doe would bring the running costs in below the estimate. Yeah. The £306,000, I think it was 306,000, was the existing running costs, and there's an assumption that the ongoing running costs will be substantially more, and Councillor Doe is committed to driving those down. So we've got two issues: capital, that's the urgency of it, and the revenue costs will be dealt with in the, partly in this budget setting, which we'll agree or not in February, and the following one. That's how it works, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Jarrett. There are two issues here. There's the capital cost, and actually his own side are telling him that the cost of money is too expensive at the moment. Just by being in contact with your banks, you will know this. You've got your own advisors, and we've got the council advisors. So what we're actually asking here is for council to be prudent, and I mean in the financial sense. We don't want any more expenditure, and we don't want people saying that this is a vanity project. We've seen that in some of the library refurbishments, particularly up in Wigmore, where they didn't actually end up with even a notice board afterwards. But leaving all those past things aside, money is too expensive now. There is the possibility, and actually if you've been talking to anybody in the financial world today, there's actually been a slight reduction in the costs of money. So this is prudent. Get the detail right, buy your money at the right price, and we will have a good building in the east of the borough. But I was always of the opinion that we need a multi-purpose building. We've got some architects' work done. I don't think that's money that's going to be down the drain. You can reuse it. So all I'm saying is, don't just play politics with this. Use your financial heads and vote for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, tonight I've heard some comments saying that this is about Rainham members and this is about the people of Rainham. Yes, it is, to a degree, but this is a Medway facility. This will be a leisure facility for all of Medway. That's not something that we have at this moment in time. And if you think about how so many children, how many families actually engage with swimming, it is normally through leisure. And then they will go on to lane swimming and possibly go on to swim for the rest of their lives. We have had this proposal now in various forms on the table for a couple of years. It has been a frustrating journey. I think we can all agree to that. But ultimately, we've got to make a decision. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. If we want to do it and do it properly, and I think we can admit that the first Battersea Centre wasn't what it should have been, then we have to spend the money to do it.
And ultimately, if you don't commit to it, it's always moving away from you. If you don't commit tonight, it will be a more difficult decision down the road, and a more difficult decision, and a more difficult decision. Certain costs may go down. Other costs will go up. In terms of the cost of borrowing money, that will fluctuate over time. It will go up and down. Ultimately, you have to make a decision. Are you committed to this leisure provision in Medway? Are you committed to the children and the families of Medway? Are you committed to the future of Medway? I am. I hope colleagues in the chamber are tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to draw members' attention to what I think is some fairly strong wording in the legal implications section of the paper. You know, in particular 11.3, which discusses the budgetary pressures that we know we're going to face early next year when we look at the revenue budget. And it says that when setting that budget, you know, members will need to exercise judgment in balancing competing needs in terms of mandatory and discretionary services, leisure services obviously being a discretionary function. And I think that, you know, I'll obviously be supporting Labour's amendment. And that information is really just asking for, that amendment is asking for the information that we need to be able to make that judgment. And it's saying that we can't wait until the budget, that we think for good decision making that we need to know now. So it really helps us to balance those competing needs at the point at which we are making a decision, which I think is just fundamentally good, transparent decision making. And I think when introducing this item, you know, Councillor Doe talked about having the courage to take it forward. And I just don't think that it should be badged as courageous as bringing forward making significant financial decisions without knowing how you were going to pay for them in the long run. We don't know what you're not going to do in order to build this facility. And again, it's not about kicking the can down the road. It's about having clear, transparent decisions where we can balance, we can weigh up the various factors and make sure that we are ultimately, you know, making a good decision in the interest of everybody in Medway. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just remind members, going back to July of this year, when we were initially given this proposal, there were two options. Option A, that said we will wait, get a tender, then we'll come back to council for the justification for the funds. Option B, which is seek approval for funding without the tender process. And we as the council accepted that on the basis that it said here that this would be continually reviewed by the quantity surveyors. We've had 3 cabinet meetings since then. No doubt we've had some form of governance, and the original feasibility studies being checked by those cabinet members along with those quantity surveyors, and no doubt the management team that's looking after this. So how have we come to this situation? I strongly object to the cynical justification that this is for Medway, because it's not. It's those people in the east of the borough. My residents, and the majority of residents on the west side of the borough, will never go to it. They don't even go to Medway Park. So that's just a cynical attempt. We've been informed many times that this council cannot commit future councils and its budgets to provide services that we are currently unsure of. Yet this proposal is asking us to do exactly that, with millions of pounds in future costs. I'm sorry, but I can't accept this proposal in its original form. Thank you.
Councillor Sands.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just heard Councillor Potter telling us that this is for the whole of Medway. If you're living on the Isle of Grain or maybe All Hallows or anywhere on the peninsula, this isn't for you. It'll be very difficult to get to. The peninsula has lost so much in the last few years. Sturdy Sports Club, the BP Sports Club. They closed Deangate because it was losing £80,000 a year. But now we are considering spending an eye-watering amount of money, which will produce yearly cost loss of 2.3 million. This is not a whole of Medway. This is a Rainham project. It won't assist anybody on the peninsula. And we were promised in 2018 a new sports centre on the peninsula. Where is it? There's no money for a sports centre on the peninsula. I will be supporting this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor O'Para.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I, like my colleague, Councillor Potter, I'm very committed to this project. I want to see this for the children we have here in Medway, for the people of Medway. I'm passionate about it. I also agree that obviously the project has been going for a long while, but I'm sure, Madam Mayor, that we can wait a few more months to get it right. The cost of living and, the huge cost, the increase, is just something that we cannot at this stage obviously take on. I'm calling for prudence. And as such, Madam Mayor, I will not be supporting the original recommendation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think what's clear from the agenda item tonight is one thing over and above everything else, and that's that Councillor Potter wants to go swimming. Councillor Potter's got the badges sewn onto his trunks, his swimming badges all sewn on and ready, water wings pumped up. And meantime, lots of grown-ups in the room have made some very sensible contributions about the caution which we need to show to future children in Medway, who will also want to go swimming at other sites across the borough. So I think what we have here is the problem that perhaps Councillor Doe is the parent who's he's just not prepared to say no. He's just not prepared to scold the child desperate to go swimming.
Right. I'm sorry, can I just stop? Thank you.
On a point of order, Madam Mayor, I do not like it when this council gets into sort of silly insults and insinuations of children, things on trunks. Can we please have your advice on the appropriate conduct in the council chamber for debates which are done in the public domain? Thank you.
Let's continue with the debate.
Thank you. Let's continue with the debate. Thank you.
Councillor Lammas doesn't enjoy the wordplay, which perhaps raises the level of debate to a level that perhaps people can stay awake and pay attention. Perhaps he would rather the debate continued in its usual turgid fashion, month in, month out at Medway Council. But I do not mean any harm to Councillor Potter. He knows I'm speaking metaphorically. But in that metaphorical sense, I'll conclude by saying, is Councillor Doe prepared to be and join the grown-ups in the room who are actually standing up for future generations in Medway who should not be left footing the bill for a hasty decision today?
Well done. Thank you. Councillor Thorne, your light went on and off. Did you want to join in the debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My original statement was just before this amendment was put through, so I will say it. I think that a state-of-the-arts facility in Medway is extremely welcomed, but it is at a cost to the people of Medway. And should the proposal go ahead, I would like a reassurance from the portfolio holder for leisure services, Councillor Doe, that a tight rein will be given to ensure that this much-needed facility is within the budget and that spending will be carefully monitored and scrutinised. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to sum up now. So can we go back to Councillor May?
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. And I want to thank colleagues from all sides of the chamber who recognise the importance of fiscal prudence and want to make sure that if we're spending taxpayers' money, we're doing it wisely. And importantly, going back to the excellent question to the legal officer, in an informed way so that we're making legal judgments. Councillor Thorne is right when he says we've got to keep an eye on the detail, we've got to keep an eye on the finances. That's why I've brought forward the amendment today. colleagues have rightfully said, actually, and if Councillor Curry was here tonight, I know he would be saying, actually one of the questions that the whole splashes process to date has left is what risk is there to all of the other leisure facilities in Medway? We still don't have that information, and if this is carried tonight, which it may be, we'll find out in a recorded vote shortly, Mayor Aldous. I'd quite like that report that comes forward potentially to a special full council to look at those other areas as well, because actually we might be in a situation where we've got 3 or 4 more splashes to have to deal with. We just simply don't know. So, Mayor Aldous, I hope colleagues on all sides of this chamber support this. This is not about a delaying tactic. This is not about anything else. This is about making sure that we've got information as to what won't happen in Medway if we vote for this project to proceed with the current financial situation on the table today. Councillor Stamp in his seconding speech was right to highlight that actually when this first came forward, that was £5 million. And actually I know colleagues on both sides were worried about that figure. Double that and then double it again, and then add another £3 million on top, along with the £500,000 ongoing costs to run the place. We wouldn't be doing our job, as Councillor Etheridge rightly gave the helpful dictionary definition of scrutiny earlier on. We in this chamber have got to make sure every pound of taxpayers' money is spent appropriately, efficiently, and we cannot do that with some halfway through the financial year addition of this nature, of this size, without any information to say how we're going to make this happen. That's why we bring forward this amendment. I'm grateful to colleagues across the chamber for their support. We will be calling a recorded vote, Mayor Aldous, and I hope colleagues on all sides will support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doe.
It's a delaying tactic, as you well know. The fact is that we know very well that these prices will not hold, and I can almost guarantee that you'll be paying substantially more. And of course, it's quite interesting when all through this process, we've been told we're not getting on with this fast enough by the opposition. We don't really mean to do it. Now, of course, when we want to do it, they turn the whole thing round, and they're not trying to make sure that we take as long as possible to make a decision, and then it becomes so expensive that no one would ever want to do it. That's rather contrasts, I think, with our Labour council down the road in Gravesham, who are actually spending £34 million on replacing cascades, which, of course, they should do. I think that we can't, obviously, in a capital scheme, prejudge the budget-setting processes. Particularly, can we not do it as regards the coming year, but the year after? I don't think, actually, Councillor Maple needs to worry, because we'll still be running the budget, and by goodness, we'll make sure it does balance. As regards the remarks of Councillor Stamp, that, it's escalated from 5 million, he knows perfectly well the reasons behind this, and I think that they're totally different projects. And I think that it's not a fiasco at all. It is just simply what is happening in a highly volatile market, and we have to respond. I've also heard from Councillor Turpin, to whom I've already given this answer, but actually he's saying we have a lack of sports strategy. Again, we are looking at that sports strategy to revise it. I think it's likely it will come out in the spring. And there is absolutely no reasons why I think that this should affect the decisions on who. I think who actually will, I've no doubt that it will get a proper leisure facility. I'm determined that it will. But it will be a little time before we do that, on the basis that, of course, we've got simply to increase the number of people that are likely to use it to justify a proper centre. So I think, really, we are, very unlikely to be somewhat disingenuous about this. I think that this is a recipe, by actually deferring this, it's a recipe for complete failure of the project, or it is a recipe for charging people more. I think that the electorate is wiser than that, and frankly, it will support us in getting on with this. It is, as you say, a matter of opinion.
Thank you very much.
On the amendment, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I'm going to ask members to indicate their voting intention So we're voting on the amendment by either for, against or abstain on the amendment, please. So let me start with Councillor Adeayo. Councillor Ahmed. Madam Mayor, Councillor Alders. And Madam Deputy Mayor, Councillor Barrett. Against. 2 against. Councillor Brake. Councillor Brown. Councillor Buckwell. Councillor Carr. Councillor Diane Chambers. Councillor Rodney Chambers. Councillor Jane Chitty. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Doe. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Fern. Councillor Hackwell. Councillor O'Croft Scott. Councillor Hubbard. Councillor Isles. Councillor Jarrett. Councillor Kemp. Councillor Lamas. Councillor Lloyd. Thank you. Councillor Mayhill. Councillor Maple. Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Murray. Councillor O'Para. Councillor Osborne. Councillor Patterson. Councillor Potter. Councillor Prenter. Councillor Price. Councillor Purdy. Councillor Sands. Councillor Stamp. Councillor Tijan. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thorne. Councillor Tranter. Councillor Turpin. Councillor Elizabeth Turpin. 4. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Rupert Turpin. Councillor Van Dyke. Councillor Wildy. And Councillor Williams. Madam Mayor, if we just pause a moment while we tally the scores, please. It's fine, just take your time. Madam Mayor, just beg members' patience while we get this vote right and we're comparing both records. So, your patience, please, members.
Thank you.
So we need a casting vote.
So we've got 45.
Yeah.
45 in the room.
Yeah.
22, 22. 54 members. Yeah. 1 abstention. Okay, so it's the mayor's casting vote.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, can I tell members the results of that scoring? So 22 for, 22 against, 1 abstention, so it goes to the mayor's casting vote, which means the amendment is lost, and therefore we're back to the substantive item.
This is just for I wasn't going to raise it, but I will. I'm grateful for technical colleagues, but the hearing loop is not working tonight, and that does impede some of our members, and I'm grateful, I say, colleagues did interim measures, but it is difficult for those who have hearing difficulties if the hearing loop isn't working. I appreciate entirely that is out the hands of officers, but I would note that, and I hope certainly moving forward that can not happen again, please. Thank you.
Councillor Hocko-Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really do find in the 21st century people laughing at people's disabilities, and impairments from the other side. It's not the first time it's happened. Councillor Lloyd needs the loop system working. Otherwise, he's very sensible and asks for a prompt from us on this side. The Equalities Act of 2010 talks about discrimination, doesn't need pantomime horses over there chuckling when people are not included in the 21st century by Medway Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will ask members to be more respectful. Thank you. Councillor Jarrett.
Madam Mayor, this is not a point of order. I take great exception to that outburst. No one was laughing at Councillor Lloyd. No one at all. The acoustics here aren't the best in the world, and we've already commissioned extra work to be done. Although whether that will survive the budget setting in these difficult times, who knows? So there's no need for this outburst like that at all, Madam Mayor. Completely uncalled for.
We are back to debating the original proposal. Thank you. Any members? Nope.
Do we need to, does Councillor Potter and Councillor Doe want to sum up?
Councillor Potter, Councillor Doe, do you want to sum up or from the original amendment, original proposal?
Councillor Potter first.
Sorry, Councillor Potter first, and then.
Oh, okay. I'll wait here.
Apologies, I had a bit longer then. Well, members, I spoke earlier about the importance of this project to the people of Medway, that this is an investment in the future. Yes, I enjoy swimming. I have a Medway membership. I enjoy swimming at a number of our pools across Medway. That even when Splashes was open, it only had the lane swimming sessions a couple of times a week. So I've always travelled to Hoo. I like Hoo because it tends to be a bit quieter. I can get there in 25 minutes from Rainham straight through the tunnel. I swim at Medway Park, and on occasion when I come in through that way, I swim at Strood. And I note the investment that we put into Medway Park over the years, several £1 million, I think £28 million actually over a number of phases, and several £1 million of investment into Strood over the years to improve those projects. And actually we've got to do the same here for this facility in Rainham. It's in Rainham, but it is for all of Medway. And just as I travel to other parts of Medway for lane swimming, if we have the best leisure provision in the region, and I want this to be the best leisure centre for young families in the region, then people from across Medway and beyond will travel to this centre. I want us to, for those on the peninsula, I want us to outcompete Cascades. Yeah, I want us to win that battle. And ultimately that supports the viability and the long-term sustainability of this project. Let's make this centre what it always should have been. Let's invest in the future. Let's invest in children and families in Medway. As I said, I'm committed to that, and I hope colleagues in this chamber are too. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Doe.
To rerun the debate, I think most people have actually expressed their views, but I do think that it comes down to a question of, I think we're all concerned with costs, and I think what I think we need to do, and what I'm determined we will do, is to watch every penny on this project. I think we absolutely have to do that, and we'll constantly be looking at costs, and where we can save money without, and I stress this, without affecting the quality of what we provide, then I look to us to do that. And, I think that as I say, I think it's now a question really of, if you want this project, then you have to vote for it. If you don't, well, I'm very sorry, but people of not only Rainham will be disappointed, but I think a large slice of the borough will be extremely disappointed. And I also think that our credentials as a child-friendly city then really come into question.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask members to vote on the original motion. Thank you. Those in favour?
Madam Mayor, we just want to again get this absolutely right. So Bipinder's going to go down.
Yeah. We want to get this absolutely right, so we're going down to make sure that the count is correct. The original proposal is carried. We now move on to the next item, item 13, Revenue Budget Additions Report, the Brook Theatre. Councillor Doe, would you like to make the proposal?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that many members will know that we have obviously done quite a makeover on the Brook Centre, in the sense that we have, with public money, carried out some very good external works. And we've also been, I think, successful in generating a lot of money which will be used to improve it as a theatre for customers. I think the only problem that we've encountered, which I think is inevitable on a building that was opened in 1894, I think that we now have a problem arising, I think, from the name of the theatre, the Brook, because there is a suggestion that some of the actual structure of it, particularly in the basement areas, actually is not sound. And we have to check that out from health and safety reasons. That's why we need to do this survey, the £250,000 survey. But I think that there is no need to assume that that is going to mean enormous immediate costs, because what we will do is take a look at the costs over a period and how much has to be done, how much has to be done now, and how much can be done at a future date. Because obviously this is a very important building in terms of our emerging city centre, and it's also a very important building because I think that it gives character to that city centre, and also makes, I think, we develop really a very, very strong local arts presence in there. A number of local groups, the excellence of whom has been really recognised by places like the Edinburgh Festival and throughout different parts of the country. And that is, I think, key, really, to part of the renaissance that we've now engendered in the arts within Medway. and of course the development of the intra-area and also the docking station. So I do think this is a very important survey to take place, and I hope all members will feel able to support it.
Thank you very much. Is that supported? Thank you, Councillor Jowett. Do you wish to speak now?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor, just briefly. Of course, if we take the logic of the previous debate forward, we won't invest any money on anything just in case. But I hope members are a bit more realistic with this. We've spent significant sums of money on the Brook, on the externals of the Brook, £416,000 on the facade, and made a wonderful job of it too. And as the report sets out, we've now secured external funding for additional work. So everything is heading in the right direction. However, it's called the Brook, not the Brook Theatre. It's called the Brook for a reason, because there's a brook underneath, a river, and with water comes corrosion and degradation if we're not very careful. Some corrosion has been identified, and we now need this feasibility study to determine the extent of that and how much remedial work might need to be done, if any. As Councillor Doe said, going on from that, making assumptions about substantial sums of money to be spent at another time in the future, that's a big leap at the moment. But the feasibility study is absolutely essential. We've got to pay for it, and we can see what comes from that, and then we can decide the future of any spending profile that's required. But it's really important that we get on with the work that allows us to invest the external funding, that we carry out the feasibility study, and we continue to make the most of this one of Medway's most iconic buildings, Madam Mayor. So I support Councillor Doe entirely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maple.
Thank you, Mayor Aldous of Rainham. I'm very happy to be supporting this because the £250,000 we'll be spending means we can invest 27 times that with the Levelling Up Fund and Future High Streets Fund. And do you know what's amazing? This has got clear detail as to where that funding's coming from, how that funding will be used effectively, almost, dare I say it, like the suggestion in the previous debate. But we are where we are. I want, I should probably declare a minor interest that before I was a councillor, I used to work at the Brook and Central Theatres, and there was flooding even then, and there's definitely flooding now. So this work does need to happen. We need to have a thriving arts sector. It's important for our well-being, both mental and physical. It's important for Medway's economy, frankly. So we wholeheartedly support this. It's the right thing to do. It's a shame sometimes you have to go through Hunger Games-style bidding processes like the Levelling Up Fund, but we are where we are. And this week's Secretary of State for MHCLG, I'm sure, will continue to do whatever they're doing. So Mayor Aldous will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Potter.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to support this item here. I think it's very important to say that if we support art and culture in Medway, then we've also got to have buildings in which art and culture can be practiced. And it also goes beyond that as well, because actually there's a lot of community groups and sort of more general events that take place in the Brook Theatre, including child-friendly Medway City Hall events. We've had actually the last one was at the Corn Exchange, but we've had a number of those engagement events at the Brook Theatre, engaging with our young people across Medway, and they've as part of that whole programme, actually, it's been a tremendous success. So just one example of how the Brook Theatre is used to support the community here in Medway. And just like the previous item, I support this because I support investing in the future of Medway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cooper.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Going on from what Councillor Potter has said, Interestingly, this afternoon I was at this event at the Chatham Historic Dockyard, which is the Creative Schools Network, and lots of representatives were there from different schools, head teachers, a lot of staff from Medway Council and from the Brook Theatre, everybody. And we're looking, or they are looking to create partnerships so that we can actually do this creative work in Medway. So the Brook Theatre is part of all of that, and so are lots of other buildings and lots of other events. So I was the only councillor there because I'm also a school governor. So that's why I got the in to go in, and part of Medway Afro-Caribbean Association declare an interest. I am a trustee. So, you know, there were lots of people there, very, very interested, many stalls, many participants, and it was a good event. So hopefully that will come to fruition, and a lot of work will be done on this. So this is what I've just been telling you, because that's where I went this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cooper.
Councillor Arles.
Councillor Arles, no, I think...
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to follow on from Councillor Potter's comments regarding child-friendly Medway, and to say that I fully support the recommendation because the Brook fully supports the City Hall events, although, as Councillor Potter also said, one was held at the Rochester Corn Exchange. In the main, it is the Brook that supports those events. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As there's no other members, we will go back to Councillor Doe.
I'd just like to thank members for their support for this. It's a regrettable necessity, but one I think we're going to we have to do, and I hope that we can carry on and get this theatre, as I'm sure it will, into a proper shape. And it will be a real credit to our city centre.
Thank you very much. Is that agreed? Thank you. We now move on to item 14, Mosaic, Children's Urgent Forms Development. Councillor Josie Arles, would you like to make the proposal?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would. The item 14, Mosaic, Children's Urgent Forms Development. This report sets out an urgent proposal to rebuild the children's side of Mosaic by replacing licensed forms with simplified forms and database reports, which will drive sustainable strengths-based practice improvement. It asks the Council to agree an addition of £1.7 million to the revenue budget to be funded from reserves. Mosaic is the adults and children's database system which holds all child-level information to support statutory reporting across children's services. Social workers record their intervention with families in accredited signs of safety forms which sit in the Mosaic database. These forms are commissioned through a separate provider called ILIA. The report sets out the rationale for why the Council needs to urgently move away from the use of the accredited signs of safety forms provided by ILIA. The forms are complex and confusing and do not support effective recording for social workers. Since the implementation of the forms in April 2021, there have been extensive negotiations with ILIA to make the forms fit for purpose and reduce the length and complexity. ILIA maintains intellectual property rights over the forms and has not supported Medway to make any meaningful changes to support practice development. Access, the Mosaic providers, have terminated their contract with ILIA. This means that we cannot carry out the development on the forms that is critically needed. Having now reached a critical stage, it is clear that we cannot progress with the current forms, and an alternative solution must be sought which supports our practice and reporting needs. Other local authorities who have implemented the forms on the Mosaic system have had similar difficulties and are also considering ending their involvement with ILIA. To do this will require substantial investment of £1.7 million to procure the technical expertise to build new forms and convert the database reports which are needed to carry out our statutory functions in respect of practice and reporting. Although there is the capability and expertise to undertake this specialist work within the existing systems team within Medway Council, there is not sufficient capacity to maintain all the systems, progress all the other development work that is needed across the Council, as well as dedicating this new project, which will require a full-time resource for up to 2 years. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Is that supported? Thank you. Do you wish to... It was lovely. We now go to debate. Councillor Councillor Maple.
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. The Labour Group will be supporting this tonight. Obviously, my friend and colleague, Councillor Johnson, sadly can't be here. I know in conversation with him, this is we have to rather than we want to. And it feels a bit like the equivalent of, and we've all been there, where you're on a website and you just scroll to the bottom to click I agree, and then you agree, and then you realise, actually what have we agreed to here? Which is not the fault of Medway Council, because actually many other councils, as Councillor Isles rightfully said, are in a similar position. So, look, this is a statutory duty, a really important statutory duty we have. This is why we have reserves. So on that basis, and I'm confident that in this process, as we continue with Ofsted in particular, ensuring that dialogue with other councils to make sure procurement moving forwards, when we get to the next iteration of this, whatever it might be in years to come, that the lessons from this process are learned, so we're not picking up another £1.7 million one-off payment in future years. So we'll be supporting this, regrettably, as I think would be the case on all sides. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jarrett.
Well, I wasn't going to speak, Madam Mayor, but Councillor Maple, I thought I had to follow up on what he said, because he's absolutely right that we don't want to have to be spending this sort of money again. Neither should we, had the supplier been more customer focused. It's quite extraordinary that someone is selling you a product and you say, I've got a problem with this product, and they say, well, tough, get on with it. It's quite an interesting take on customer service, isn't it? But the element that is so important is the fact that the current system that we have is holding back our children's services to improve further and faster. It is holding us back for certain. It must surely have an effect on staff morale, because they are trying to work through a system which must be like walking through treacle at times on a cold day, whatever that's like. So it's very, very important. Very annoying to have to spend this sort of money on this, but it's I'm afraid it's a must-do.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brake.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I stand to support the proposal here tonight. And I'd just like to take members back a little bit in time, in as much as that the introduction of Mosaic actually brought with it improved efficiencies, not only to children's services, but equally to adult services. And the more efficient the service is, the more efficient it means that our officers are, and it means that they can do far more than they would do under the usual systems. And of course, before Mosaic, we had Framework I. And Framework I was introduced really at the behest of adult services initially, but there was a need at the time to provide additional services for children. This is something that came out of reviews that said that children's services need to be pulled up by the bootlaces. And again, this was all about efficiency, it was all about record keeping, and it was all about making sure that we had something that was accessible for both children and adults. So it was a through service. But before that, Madam Mayor, just so that people are aware, we had officers that were actually writing reports, putting them into a filing tray for the typist That's what we had. A typist would then fill in the information, and this could take something like sometimes up to 6 weeks before the information was being transferred. With Framework I and subsequently with Mosaic, it's instantaneous. Our officers are doing the work, they're inputting straight away, and we have far greater efficiencies. And it is, and I'm so pleased that others within the chamber are very supportive of the programme being proposed. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Agree with colleagues. Signs of safety is paramount for our children and young people. We had them come to our corporate parenting board to talk to us about what they were doing. So this is really, really, absolutely, we have to do this. We have to get it right. But obviously, the other councils and authorities that are having this difficulty, I hope that discussions are going ahead with them, because we need to do something about this. We can't have providers riding roughshod over what we want to do with our children and young people. So surely there must be some kind of legal thing that we can do to get them to understand where we're all coming from, because it's not just us, it's others that are having this difficulty. So, you know, if we all get together, maybe we can do something collectively, because this is not good from this company. It really is not good, because we need our social workers to input. We need to have signs of safety, and we need to keep our children and young people and adults safe.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. As there's no other members, Councillor Potter, did you want to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm very happy to support this evening. As someone who has a computing background and has worked in software development, I totally understand the challenge that is in front of us here. We've got to get the right front end talking to the back end. And ultimately, we've committed to signs of safety. It's an approach that is working, that is, we're seeing the improvements in practice, and we cannot have the technology holding us back and slowing us down with that pace of that improvement. So it's really, really important that we get this right. And it's all part of that wider improvement journey, you know, having that forensic focus on everything, really going down to the minutiae and getting it all right. And I have to say, last night I was at the Medway Youth Awards. It was a fabulous event, and I was speaking to our Director of Children's Services about aspiration in Medway and raising aspirations. And actually, that's a key part of what we're doing with this improvement journey, because all aspects of children's, whether it's in our schools, whether it's social care, whether it's the work of the youth service, all of that falls into that aspirations agenda, including getting our systems right. It's all part of that aspirations agenda. And actually earlier on tonight, we had Councillor Halcroft-Scott talking about the aspirations officer that presented at the corporate parenting board. And actually, you made a good point there, that is a quality officer and an excellent piece of work. And actually, as part of the ongoing work that Councillor Isles does with officers, we will be reviewing the structure and what's embedded into the budget going forwards. So the point you make is a valid one, and we'll see what happens with those decisions going forwards. But it all falls into that, as I say, aspirations agenda for what we're doing for our children and young people in Medway across the system, getting everything right as we go forwards. So very happy to support the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Josie Arles.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, members, for your support, your absolute support. Thank you very much. It is a crucial step that we're taking here, a necessary step, unfortunately, but we just could not and cannot carry on with the situation as it is. Staff's frustration, and I have to say my own on several occasions with the situation that they were you know, presented with, and actually, although it was frustrating, they tried everything and did everything to deliver the service on time. But you can imagine how difficult that is when you have complex forms that you can't pull information through, and it's very critical to have correct children's records. So I thank you once again for your support. It is also crucial to our improvement journey, and over the next 7 months, you know, we will go ahead with that. I can inform the Chamber that work has already started on draft forms. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is that agreed? We move on to item 15, amendments to the capital programme and rent setting for housing revenue account, new build and purchase properties for affordable and sociable rent. Councillor Jarrett, would you please make your proposal?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I will, and I move the recommendation as set out under section 8. That entails some HRA discussion that Councillor Doe will deal with, who's seconding this item. And I'll just touch on the additions to the capital programme, which is set out under section 3. I don't think there's anything terribly contentious there. There is the first two, 3.1, 3.2, are externally funded. Beg your pardon, as is 3.3. 3.4 continues with our community hub programme. We have a number of community hubs already in Medway, and certainly it's the administration's view that we should continue that process as and when we can. And this is a further extension of that. And finally, 3.5, Madam Mayor, is to remove the fund as set out there, a ring-fence fund, which is we're finding difficulty to use for the purposes stated, because government were making life difficult for local authorities to invest beyond their boundaries. In fact, there's some degree of irritation on my part in that, because they reduce our funding and then stop us raising funding ourselves. But hey-ho, that's where we are. However, they were going to be funded from prudential borrowing anyway, so I think it's right just to remove that item from the balance sheet. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Is that supported?
Yes, I'd gladly support that. And in doing so, I'd like to focus particularly on the new build scheme where we are setting the rents. You will see that they are, I'm asking you to set the rents tonight, that these are rents which are significantly below the market level. We do realise, of course, that in this current age, if you like, or current economic situation, people are having great difficulty in paying their rents. But I think that, you know, we run a very compassionate organisation, and therefore, you know, these rents, I think, will be able to be collected, and if there are difficulties, we will address those. So I would ask you to accept that and enable us to carry on with our programme of new build in the HRA, which I think is actually helping us to deal with the waiting list and those in need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maple.
Thank you very much, Mayor Aldous. The Labour Group will be supporting these three recommendations tonight. As Councillor Jarrett said, 8.1 is pretty straightforward, and it is a frustration that, I mean, there are some other councils, and maybe some just over an estuary perhaps, who have frankly spoilt it for others. They have taken the powers and used them excessively and failed, and therefore the whole sector, when they're cut by 60 pence in the pound and councils trying to use innovative ways to bring in income because of one or two, the game's over for all of us. Supportive of 8.2. On 8.3, we would ask, and we didn't want to look to move a formal amendment, but we hope this can be confirmed by the leader in his summing up, it would be helpful if business support ONS were able to receive an update when those delegated powers are used. Happy to talk with the chair of the committee at our next pre-agenda around what that might look like from a practical perspective. But I absolutely agree, bringing a report to full council to set the rates for potentially one house is not a good use of everybody's time. So it still needs that scrutiny. So again, not looking to iron out the exact mechanics tonight, but a broad principle that will be reported back through business support. And again, I'm happy to work with the chair of the committee to look at the mechanics of that. Thank you, Mayor Aldous.
Thank you. As there's no other members, Councillor Jarrett.
Thank you. Nothing to add apart from agreeing with what Councillor Maple has suggested, and we need to make sure the minutes show that, and I will be speaking to the Director of Place and Deputy Chief Executive along those lines.
Thank you very much. Is that agreed? On to item 16, outcomes of consultation on proposals to change 3 grammar schools from single gender to co-educational provisions. Councillor Potter, would you like to make your proposal?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to introduce this report which outlines the outcomes of the consultation period to change 3 grammar schools from single-sex to co-educational. The 3 schools, Chatham Grammar, Fort Pitt Grammar and Holcombe Grammar, requested that the Council coordinates the initial consultation process and the subsequent steps required to reach formal approval. This report sets out the details of the consultation, the responses and next steps. There were 67 responses to the consultation, of which 48% objected, 46% approved and 6% were neutral. There are a number of themes highlighted within the responses, both positive and negative to the proposals, and these are set out within Appendix 8 of the report. The formal decision to approve the changes to the admissions arrangements at the schools falls to the Regional Schools Commissioner, who will make that decision following further admission consultations led by the individual schools and a subsequent business case requesting a significant change to their admissions arrangements. The Council's role, aside from coordinating the process, is to agree to fund the physical adjustments needed at the schools in order to provide facilities appropriate for a mixed environment. Feasibility studies have been undertaken at each school, and the cost to make the necessary changes to the school premises totals £2.5 million, which, should formal approval be granted by the Regional Schools Commissioner, will follow the Council's procurement processes. Should all approvals be in place, the proposals will be implemented from September 2024. For clarity, the incumbent year groups in the schools that are single-sex will remain all the way until their final journey up until the 6th form. The outcome of the proposals, together with an adjustment to the percentage of the Medway cohort who can pass Medway tests, form part of the Council's admission, and that will form part of the Council's admissions consultation, will mean that more Medway pupils will have the opportunity to access a local grammar school. I thank members of the Children's Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their comments. In particular, I note the point about parental choice with selected schools, but what I would say is, at the moment, there is only one co-educational grammar school in Medway. Should the proposals go ahead, it will be a ratio of 4 co-eds to 2 single-sex provisions. Under Decision 101/2022 and reference at 10.4 of this report, the Cabinet recommended full Council to agree to add £2.5 million to the capital programme to fund the necessary building modifications to ensure that the appropriate facilities are available, but that only goes ahead, as I said earlier, if the Regional Schools Commissioner approves the proposals. I therefore move the recommendations as laid out in section 13.1 and 13.2 of the report, to note the contributions from the Scrutiny Committee and to agree that additional funding for the capital budget. Thank you.
Is that supported?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Would you like to speak now? Or...
I'll reserve my right, please.
Thank you. Councillor Maple, would you like to?
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. The Labour and Cooperative Group will be supporting the recommendations tonight, but we certainly, as Councillor Potter said, raised some questions at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I thank colleagues for that. I'm on the record when one of the 3 schools individually was considering this in my ward, that actually taking that school in isolation and making it co-ed was not a sensible move. Taking these cluster of 3 schools, in a personal view, and certainly speaking as a ward councillor, I think is a more sensible approach. And part of the reason for that is it will open up more spaces to Medway young people. As a ward councillor, I've got residents writing to me at the moment because there are 3 coaches coming to a school in my ward, which may well be one of these 3 that has boys. Parking inconsiderately, that's not the fault of the school, that's not the fault of the coach company, that's certainly not the fault of the kids. The coaches, for the avoidance of doubt, have been organised by the parents who don't live in Medway. So that's very, very frustrating. And if Phil Filmer was here tonight, certainly there's been dialogue with him. We're looking to try and find a solution. But that's proving very difficult, not least because utility companies are not doing what they've said they would do. So that's just a micro example of some of the pressures that are currently on these 3 schools in question. The other point I would raise, Madam Mayor, and this is slightly wider of just what we're looking at here, and actually it goes back to the previous point around some of the previous item around some of the Section 106 contributions. We know that viability is being shouted time and time and time again, dare I say it, until it was withdrawn by this council's own company. So the predication that there is a chance that £2.5 million could come from Section 106 funding, depending on the agreement from the Regional Schools Commissioner and whether there's other pots available, I think we should all go into with quite a large amount of caution because my fear is even existing Section 106 agreements may well be attempted to be torn up by developers, as I say, including the council's own company. So with those concerns, we're happy to support this proposal. There are some who are against this for laudable and understandable reasons, but I think this is absolutely the right time to bring this forward. And of course, the 3 schools ultimately will be at the behest of the Regional Schools Commissioner. Thank you, Mayor Alder.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to have confirmation about the question that I asked at the Scrutiny Committee. It's about transport, because just recently on one of our transport appeals, we had the GIS system explained and shown to us. Now, I would like to make sure that our transport policy will be definitely looked at to make sure that it is correct for all these pupils who need to change, go to a co-educational school now, because there will only be one girls' school. So we know that the parents' carers put 5 schools down. So I want to make sure that parents and carers know what they are looking at, because as we know, admissions and transport do not mix. And we had a big discussion about this. And so please, can the portfolio holder assure me that our transport policy will be looked at in relation to this? And if needs be, if there are any changes that need to be made, can we be assured that they will come to us so that we can have a look at this and that parents and carers know if there is anything different? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I quite happily support this proposal. However, I do have some concerns regarding on page 158, 4.5, where it says quite clearly for the desired outcome, etc. How do we ensure that we do actually achieve that desired outcome and that parents do nominate all the schools as opposed to just 1 or 2? And I would just like to understand how we're going to commit to that and ensure that parents are fully aware that, that is they should use all their preferences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Elizabeth Turpin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully support the recommendation this evening. I've been raising for some time the ability to increase the number of Medway children being able to access our grammar schools, where of course it's appropriate and where parents and children alike want to. However, due to the imbalance of places for girls and boys, these changes needed to come in place before we were in a position to do that. The number of children coming into our grammar schools from out of area, as Councillor Maple discussed, is high. And I do not mean those on the boundary of Medway, but where children are coming from quite some distance into our schools. So I'm pleased with these recommendations that hopefully this is something that we can now address. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Councillor Rupert Turpin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd also like to support these proposals, and I've also visited a local school near to me which is having issues with buses coming down from parts of London, and I've long wanted to ensure that local children have a chance to go to those schools. And having been to a grammar school myself and a single-sex school, I think it is a good idea and really modernising idea. It's really long since time that schools would probably be better for the social development of the children if they are in a mixed environment. So I'd fully support this, and the flexibility that it offers is an added bonus as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Isles?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I am in full support of the recommendation for the Council to add 2.5 million to the capital programme to fund the necessary building requirements to ensure facilities are made available for the co-educational provision, but subject to the Regional Schools Commissioner's agreement to go ahead with the proposals, of course. I should like to make a few points in support and following on from Councillor Potter. We are now in a position to consider funding these additional facilities through expected 23-24 basic needs funding rather than relying on 106 monies or council borrowing as initially indicated. That will be decided. We would be facilitating, more importantly, an addition and enhancement to our grammar schools provision that will benefit both Medway boys and girls. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to colleagues for all of their comments. I'll just touch on those briefly. So with regard to preferences, parents are encouraged to use all of their preferences, and we will continue to encourage them to do so. With regard to transport, I wasn't personally aware that sort of parents running their own bus line down from London, so that's news to me today. Of course, nothing will change for those pupils that are already at school here in Medway, and the Greenwich ruling means that regardless of where you live, if you apply to a school and you get a place and you meet the admissions criteria, then you can attend that school. What we're trying to do here is maximise the opportunity for Medway children to take up those places in Medway schools. And actually what I didn't mention is behind the scenes, over a number of years, we've been working with Medway's grammar schools to get them to change their admissions policies so they are predominantly prioritising based on distance rather than, for example, the score, which previously meant if you're an out-of-area child and you've got a higher score than a Medway child, you get a place in a Medway school over a Medway child. So that's changed for all of our grammar schools. Combined with what we're doing here, I think we're going to be in a much better place to maximise those Medway grammar school places for Medway children. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Now move on to item 17, the scheme of delegations. Councillor Doe, would you like to make your proposal?
I think this is a largely technical matter, but a very important one, and I'm grateful to Bhupinder for actually making sure that we're as watertight as we can be in dealing with these particular legislation, because we are, I think, if we're going to be enforcing some of this, we need to be absolutely clear that there's no loopholes that we leave behind. And I think as a result of that examination, we therefore move that the amendments to the delegations be made to reduce the risk of legal challenge to the exercise of the Council's functions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that supported? Yes, thank you. Do you wish to speak now? Any member? Do we need to debate it or is it agreed? Agreed. Item 18, use of emergency provisions. Councillor Jarrett, would you like to make your proposal?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. The report is relatively brief. 5.1 is the recommendation. There's just a couple of urgency decisions. One which was related to the consultation period for the WHO Development Framework. It's set out under section 3.1 to 3.5, 3.7, 3.8. And then there was one on a household support grant, which we've discussed earlier, Madam Mayor. So a couple of essential ones and not contentious in any way, in my view, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Is that supported? Do you wish to speak?
No,
now?
I don't. I don't think it's necessary.
Councillor Maple. Oh, no, sorry, Councillor Murray, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Aldous. I've got no quarrel with the urgency decisions. I understand why they had to be made quickly. But at 3.12, it's a plea, really, based on the discussion that we had earlier about having to return the money, notwithstanding the government's capricious attitude towards it. It's a plea, really, to look again at the criteria for the Household Support Fund. There are 1 in 3 children now in the UK, 4.3 million children, 31% of the total number of children living in poverty. And that makes it highly likely, there's nothing to be proud of about that. It makes it highly likely that the families where those children live are going to need support. And I don't know if you, Councillor Jarrett, or anybody in the Cabinet, has actually looked in detail at the Household Support Fund application form that we've got on our website. It's a lot more complex than other authorities, and it's far more searching in terms of the questions that it asks, and puts families, I think, in a position where they're really being made to feel that they've got to work very hard to get the money that actually is badged as money that will help them in an emergency and that they need quickly. It asks for bank account details of everybody in the household over a certain amount. And actually, it means that if people are honest in their declaration, they could have a savings account or a child trust fund account for their child, which could be taken into account and means tested against the amount that they can get. So I really think that it needs simplifying. It needs to be more user-friendly, and it needs to focus less on making people feel as if they've got to work for something that actually is, that they're in the situation that they're in and they're applying for that fund because of the rising cost of living, huge inflation, massive household fuel bills, where they've got nowhere else to turn. We're a council of last resort at the moment, and I don't think it's fair for people to have to jump through the hoops on that form as it stands.
Thank you very much. As there's no other members, I'd like to ask Councillor Doe, please. Is there anything you want to say?
No, sorry. I have nothing further. Nothing further I wish to say on this, Madam Chairman. I think it's fairly straightforward.
Thank you very much. Is that agreed? Oh, sorry, Councillor Jarrett. Sorry.
Now, I will take note of what Councillor Murray said and ask the Chief Executive to have the form looked at. I will add a cautionary note to that, though, because this is a finite pot of money. And pursuing the policy of hypothecation, which we've done for many years now, out of necessity, unless the government provides additional tranches, and this is the third tranche, I think, when the money runs out, the money runs out. And we all need to be aware of that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is that agreed? Now move on to motions. I call upon Councillor Hackwell to propose motion item A.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When the agenda was published, looking at the motions, you could see that both my motion and Councillor Maple's motion were very similar. So I'd like to request that I alter my motion. After the discussion with Councillor Maple, we seem to have an agreement on an altered motion that I'd like to propose. Is that it?
Thank you very much, Councillor Hackwell. Council Rule 11.4.1 states that a member may alter a motion of which he has given notice the consent of the meeting. This alteration is being handed out round now to members. Members, does Councillor Hackwell have your consent to alter his motion? You may now speak to alter your motion, Councillor Hackwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'd like to say, like nearly everyone in the country, the Council is very concerned about the cost of living and the effect it's having on residents of Medway. Domestic electricity and gas prices are at least half as much as they were this time last year, and they're probably going to be even more later on. The essence of the motion is for the Council to write to the Government to request the appropriate level of funding so that we in Medway require to help our residents, and I'm sure we'll get the support of both sides of this chamber tonight. So the actual motion really is for the Council resolves to write to the Prime Minister to request that he delivers additional savings to all households, assists in the delivery of Levelling Up initiative and allocates sufficient funding for Medway. Secondly, to work closely with the Government to deliver Medway's share of the £500 million Household Support Fund on a timely basis. And thirdly, continue to develop support and help those most in need or at greatest risk of hardship, to ensure they are fully aware of the help and assistance that is available and to ensure they receive the assistance with working partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that supported? Thank you, Councillor May.
Thank you, Mayor Aldous. I will speak to the altered motion. And just for clarity, if this is passed, I would like to formally withdraw motion B. And it was good to work with Councillor Hackwell on this. You know, I think when we saw the motion, I think everybody was like, well, we want to save the council at least 95 pence by not sending 2 letters. So let's make that happen here. Mayor Aldous, Councillor Hackwell is right. There will be residents tonight in Medway who will be scared about what the next day, week, month, quarter holds for them and their finances. And I think one of the differentials is that it's probably those who have never accessed help before. There will be people who have got a mortgage who will now be fearful that their costs are going up by more than £5,000 a year. There are people who will be in work who will not be able to make their ends meet. And nobody needs to declare an interest, but you know, the fact that our Citizens Advice Service is now working 12 hours a day just shows the level of support from our public, private and not-for-profit partners to help. So it is right that we write to Rishi Sunak and say loud and clear, we in this council chamber are concerned about our deprived urban areas and our undeprived urban areas actually, and our rural areas and all parts of Medway, because that's what we're here for. And absolutely, we want to see sufficient funding. That's not a big ask, actually, in one sense. That's just give us the money to do the job we're legally obliged to do. And there'll be differentials as to the priorities and we've heard all of that tonight. But fundamentally, there won't be a councillor in this chamber that won't want to see the right level of funding coming to Medway Council. Regrettably for colleagues on that side, they have to answer as it's their government. But tonight we're sending a clear, united message that we want the Prime Minister to deliver for the people of Medway, to make sure that we get a fair share of household support fund. And levelling up, in my view, has never been a geographical matter. It's about making sure those areas that need help get help. Regrettably, I don't think Michael Gove thinks the same way. And that's one of my real concerns. And the Leader of the Council and I have spoke about this, whether it's some of those things we've seen in the past, the City of Culture bid and elsewhere. Actually, I'm worried about how the perceived affluent southeast, like bits of Tunbridge Wells, for example, is seen to be across the whole 8 million people. And that's simply not the case. We know that for the representation of some of the wards that we represent here tonight. So I'm very pleased to second this. I look forward to seeing the response from government. I hope it comes quickly and we get the money we need, and we hear that hopefully on the 17th of November. But regrettably, I won't be holding my breath. Thank you, Mayor Aldous.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brake.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and what a pleasure it is to see the two sides of our chamber coming together on a mutually agreed area of concern, and a concern that affects all of us. You know, we all have members of our communities, our wards that we know are struggling, and these are the very people who are contacting us almost now on a daily basis to find out what is going on and what can we do to help and support. One of the suggestions that I usually make to residents in my ward is that in order to emphasise the problems that we have, there is nothing wrong in actually contacting the local Member of Parliament, irrespective of the party that they personally may support. But at the end of the day, Members of Parliament are there and they are elected representatives of our constituency. And certainly in my particular ward, I have no hesitation in saying to people, write to our local MP. And perhaps what I would like to suggest to the motion that we have here, not quite sure how this is encompassed within the motion, but in addition to writing to our Prime Minister, that it would be a good idea to copy in on the correspondence, the members of Parliament, so they know exactly what is going on and exactly how the members in this chamber feel about this very serious concern that we have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Isles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The ongoing cost of living situation can be expected to result in a spread of vulnerability among our residents, and whilst of course this is of great concern, I should like to emphasise that my predominant concern is in respect of parents and children and the effects this is likely to have on their daily lives. If the situation is not addressed, we could see a rise in demand for early and/or statutory intervention from children's services. As the lead member for the children's services, I would not want this to happen. There is also likely to be a detrimental effect on a child's ability to learn and, more importantly, to maintain good mental health. The Council has a responsibility to act in the best interest for all our residents, and therefore I am fully supportive of the Council taking the actions as outlined in the motion in order to do so. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. I return to Councillor Hackall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank both sides of the chamber tonight for supporting this. I think it's very important for the people of Medway, and it's good to end a meeting on a positive note between us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is that agreed? Excellent. Right.
So the point I raised about including the members of Parliament in that's accepted as well, is it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. As there's no other business, the meeting is now closed. Thank you.